Hi, this is Naroki5. I am going to be doing this until I die or I find something better to do. So please help me achieve this personal and, I think, noble objective by contributing to my Patreon or Subscribe Star. Link is down below. Every little bit helps. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Red Pill Nation Hangout number 352. The original 352 was supposed to be about the released Ghislaine Maxwell Epstein papers, but unfortunately, news just kept rolling in, even as we were doing the special, and we had to drop it and move it on. And I would add it into tonight, but unfortunately, we already have 7 topics, including a rather large tech report section at the back end of this. So with me tonight is my host and the guy who probably was responsible for Odyssey going under because he kept posting up all these GIMP videos there. Rearson.
One of these days, we're gonna slap that Indian out of you. That's all. That's all I got. Jeez, fuck.
I think it was the video of Steve and Tony the Tiger that really did him in.
Well, he wasn't all that great.
Yeah, he hasn't been a great prime minister, but in fairness, he's been a great Führer, Sieg Heil the Reich of Canada.
Oh, we got a story. We got a Canadian story. Actually, it is the first story. For those of you who don't know, I am at Patreon as the as Rookie5. I am at Subscribestar, but for whatever reason, Subscribestar never answers my requests as to actually getting my account verified or actualized. So I mean, I am at Subscribestar as the Red Pill Nation, but my account has never been actualized. So I don't know what the problem is there. But I am there. But right now,
Max Egan had the same problem with Subscribestar. They just ignored him out of existence.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not big on Patreon, but I'm going to have to start telling some of my old subs that I told them I was going to drop a Patreon and move over to Subscribestar, but Subscribestar just has never responded to me. So yeah, I may have to either restart at Subscribestar or find another alternative place, or just simply, well, I don't know. I'll figure it out. I am definitely not staying on Patreon. I have a feeling that once I get to it, well, given what's going on, Patreon might be losing its veto power anyway. It's all going to depend on what happens over the next couple of years. But yeah, currently Patreon as the Rookie5 is the only place I'm currently at that's like verified. I am at YouTube, but I only use YouTube to load up because it makes it easier to load up a lot of other places. Hello to my 4 whole subs, and I don't even know how I got 4 because I don't go, but I actually have 4 subs on YouTube. Don't know how that happened. But I am also at Odyssey, Rumble, BitChute, Bredion, MGTOW TV. Also having trouble getting onto banned and censored video for whatever reason, but that's not for discussion right now. Facebook, Gab, Minds, MeWe, TLB Talks, and Getter are the other places that I'm currently up at. I said at the start of last year that I was going to try to get on Spotify, iTunes, etc., and never got around to doing it. I will get on there eventually, but it's not going to happen over the next couple weeks, so don't hold your breath. Kelso, introduce yourself.
Well, anybody who's been listening to RPN and WPRPN and, places like that for long enough should already know me, Dave Kelso of PSEC, which stands for Paradigm Shift in Educational Comedy, and does not stand for PSEC equals CO2, and I am not golfing buddies with Bill Gates, but this episode of RPN has been brought to you by Pfizer because everything has been brought to you by Pfizer. you can go to minds.com/PSEC documentary, so that's PSEC documentary, and click on the About section, then scroll all the way down to the bottom where all the links of everywhere you can find all my stuff are listed. So instead of me going on the rant of the individual stuff like Naroki just did, I'm just saying, yeah, go to the one place, all the links are there, and view my stuff by which link you want to. And yes, I too also technically have a YouTube account, and any of my older stuff that has not been struck down for community guidelines hate speech because I was a white guy who put up a picture of a kitten and somehow that's a black kitten equals racism and Oreo cookies, and I don't know, it doesn't have to make any sense. But yeah, so anything that they still have allowed to remain up there is there on YouTube. I do not upload much to YouTube anymore except for the occasional little thing to advertise where else I am at on alt tech. But that is the only thing I have uploaded to YouTube since 2020, and the only type of thing I will ever upload to YouTube again is videos saying, fuck YouTube, go here. So I guess that's it on that.
Yep. So the topics for tonight, and we've actually got a bit of a grab bag here, but topic number one, Canadian reporter David Menzies arrested after questioning deputy PM. Oh, wow. That one. I think I sent Rearson the video on it. Sorry, Kelso, I don't know if it's actually up on the chat or not, but I'll describe it to you in detail when we get to it. Topic number two, Rumble under short stock attack that is now undergoing SEC investigation. Culper Research are the people who are behind that. Topic number three, Golden Globes Awards held. Nobody cares. Woke comedian Jimmy Gaffigan makes semi-based joke. 4, Iowa shooter Dylan Butler was on the FBI radar and announced his attack on Discord moments before he started. Turns out, and this might come as a massive shock, because as we all know, trans are perfectly harmless people. He was also trans and a bigot. ... Yeah, I know, I'm shocked.
But remember, trans bigots aren't actually bigots. They're loving, kind of like Antifa isn't actually fascists. They're the fascists that aren't fascists. I mean, it's all just double standards, and it doesn't have to make sense. Rules for thee, not for we.
Oh, yeah, well, there's Rebel News is at Davos right now, and I saw a video just before I got picked up to come back to the site, where a member of Antifa was arguing with the guy who Ezra Levant, and Avi Yemeni, about how Antifa really isn't Antifa, and it was kind of hard to take them serious because she was dressed up in a clown costume. But I mean, again, right? That's Antifa for you. Topic number 5: Red Pill Gonzalo Lira confirmed dead by father. He was being held in Ukrainian prison. We'll go over that in a little bit of detail. Topic number 6: Steve Crowder deletes social media. #clean slate. That one's actually kind of interesting. And then we get into the tech report. There was a lot of tech news this week.
Why would Crowder censor himself in that way is what I'd like to know. That just screams self-censorship to me.
Well, he kind of explained it, and it makes sense to a certain degree, especially considering the amount of grief that he's had to put up with in the last 12 to 18 months. He's not leaving completely. I think he's just probably taking a break from social media for a while.
I mean, why not just take his old stuff and go, okay, it's in an archive here if you want it, but as far as on any of my profiles, you're only going to see the new stuff. Like, why not just archive it, give a link, and be done with it that way?
Well,
why
I mean,
take it all down so that nobody can see it?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe it is probably archived somewhere anyway, right? But yeah, I don't know why he would do that. But I mean, his explanation kind of makes sense. And given what he's been going through, when we get to topic number 6, we'll get something into more
Yeah,
detail.
you'll have to go over that because I don't know anything about it.
Okay, topic number 7 was the tech report. 7A, AI slowly setting up to replace real women online, aka OnlyFans, and all of those sites are probably going to get replaced. The real women are slowly being replaced by fake women who, by the way, and having been fooled by one myself a couple of weeks ago, actually look better and have much more pleasing personalities than some of the women I've encountered on Instagram.
That doesn't take much, unfortunately.
Topic number B, YouTube instituting
Just wait for the AI to go woke because sometimes that happens too.
Oh, there was a story that happened before I did this. Before I started doing this, they did have an AI that was set up on Twitter, and it went probably for about a week and a half, and then it started spouting quote unquote far right conspiracy theories on a regular and routine basis, and they shut it down.
You know, I'll go into more of this when we hit the AI topic. I just want to say recently there was a channel called, I think, Dudesy, which did an AI recreation of George Carlin, called George Carlin, I'm Glad I'm Dead. And in my opinion, 75% of it was pretty accurate to what he would actually say, but about 25% of it was pure woke, far leftist fucking nonsense that he would have never said. It's halfway tempting one of these days for me to go through and make a sterilized version of that, because I did download it. Make a sterilized version of it that literally chops out the woke stuff and only leaves in what Carlin would have actually said. But with all sorts of other things on my plate, as you said about other things, nobody should expect that anytime too soon.
Okay, 7B, YouTube instituting changes that allow them to censor more internet content. This case, sensitive content.
Yep, I
No,
heard about that. Sensitive being defined however the hell they want, anytime they want. Open carte blanche, just like usual.
yep. And topic number 7C, Pixar, Google, Discord, and Twitch either collapsing or laying off massively.
Or
Yep,
both.
yep. Or both. Part again, I talked about this at the start of the year that there was going to be a long series of layoffs, and that's exactly what happened. I'm amazed at I'm actually no, I'm not really amazed at myself for getting so many of these right out the gate. The human trafficking,
Well, it's
Mark
an open
Ruffalo tweeting
secret.
out.
It's an open secret that Discord's run by degenerates anyway.
Oh yeah, obviously, Discord's very hard to. Well, when I get into Discord, I haven't had too much of a negative experience with Discord, but I have noticed things that happen on Discord, which is why a lot of people have gone over to Gilded, which is strangely enough because Gilded is actually also owned by a woke corporation, but for some odd reason, they're not censoring on Gilded. I don't know why. But without any further ado,
I haven't used Gilded yet, but I have heard it's a censorship free, or at the very least censorship resistant platform, at least so far.
yep. Okay, so topic number 1, and this one, Bruceson, did you actually get a chance to look at the video for that one? What happened to David Menzies?
No, but I will take the time.
Okay, I will go on for a bit here.
About all I could do is comment on things that you say. I don't know anything about the story to say anything preemptively, so take it away.
Okay, so David Menzies is a reporter for Rebel News he's based out of Ontario. He does a lot of reporting for Rebel News, which is quote unquote far right. Not far right, but right. It is conservative, however. But he does a lot of reporting on a lot of, like, he's the one who has been going. I think he was one of the two, at least one of the two that was going really hard after that one teacher with the really massive fake prosthetics. Yeah, he may have been one of those two. I'm trying to remember specifically, but Menzies has.
I do remember that story.
Yeah, what David Menzies is really noted for is for really just basically coming up out of nowhere with a camera and a microphone and sticking, not getting in your way, obviously, because he knows the legalities. But he will stick a microphone out and he will start asking you uncomfortable questions. And he really doesn't particularly care where this happens, but he will do it. Now, he went after, no, I won't say he went after, but Chrystia Freeland was doing an event in Ontario. I don't know specifically where she was doing this event, but she was doing an event in Ontario. And David Menzies does what David Menzies always does. He approaches her. He doesn't get in her way, so she can't claim that she's being impeded or anything like that. So she can't claim entrapment. Walking beside her, asking questions, and he starts asking questions for about 6 to 8 seconds. And at the 9-second mark, this police officer steps out from behind a pillar, doesn't announce himself. And David Menzies runs into him, and literally he bumps into the guy, and the police officer literally just seizes him and grabs him and arrests him for assault of a police officer, just because Menzies just bumped into him. And the way it went down, it looked like, it looks like it looks like it was basically set up that way. So the other thing I noticed, and this was at probably about the 8 or 9 second mark that this took place, Chrystia Freeland and the person that was with her had these rather curious, smug looks on their face while this was going on. And sorry, Rearson, I had to mute you there. They had this curiously smug look, and their reaction to it was unsurprised. And they kind of just veered off to their right and kept walking. And both of them, when you see, both of them have this surprisingly smug look on their face. Like, it's not openly smug, but you can kind of see it. This reporter, well, first of all, this RCMP officer that does this refuses to identify himself, as does the other police officer, which is not going to really save them in the long run. Multiple cops jump in, and they make a really big deal about David Menzies, quote unquote, being violent. And the thing that really kind of gave it away for them, though, was the fact that the Trudeau Twitter/X bot farm kicked into openly gloating about this, within an hour or two of it happening, before Menzies could even get out of jail or do any reporting on it. They were openly gloating about this, and a lot of them were posting up the video, and then the video is it's really, I mean, they've literally got no case. They did this just because they could, and it looks to me like it was a deliberate setup. Now, here's a curious thing, though, about the officer that did this individual arrest. And this was something that somebody noticed almost immediately and posted up on Twitter. And, of course, I forgot to save the photo, but I will have to go looking for it at the end of the show or over the next day or two here. This same police officer, was... When photos were enhanced of this fake Nazi, there's this one scene during the trucker convoy where you had a bunch of people waving around "fuck Trudeau" signs, and they had big swastika signs and whatever, and they were off in the distance. They weren't connected to the actual rally itself, but somebody got close enough and photographed photographed these people up close. And one of the people, and of course their faces were hidden, right? But one of the faces, the guy had just glasses on and a toque and a scarf, but his face is pretty much visible. And this guy's face in this photo looks very similar to the RCMP goon who arrested David Menzies. The really curious part about this is that the other curiosity number two is that the RCMP is being very tight-lipped about the name of the two major officers who did the arrest on this, as in their names have still not been released, even though legally they have to do it. But the RCMP, they're being very tight-lipped about it. They're not releasing it. It's not going out on any of the mainstream media sources. And the third part on this, and this is something else that the Trudeau bot farm, and that's what they are. If you want to know what the Trudeau bot farm is, because you need to be living in Canada to understand what the Trudeau bot farm is.
I'm sorry, you pronounced that wrong. It's called China.
The Trudeau, anyway, it's called the Trudeau bot farm. And you will consistently see these same accounts over and over and over again post up pro-Trudeau, pro-Liberal Party, anti-Pierre Poilievre, anti-conservative posts on Twitter all the time. They twist the facts around. They try to make stuff look different than what it actually is. They will basically, and it's always generally consistently the same accounts. And the bot farm, when Menzies got arrested within the next few days, and I will know, and also the mainstream, the MSM in Canada, they will not call David Menzies a reporter, even though the Rebel News was standing right next to them at both the English and the French debates at the last election. And they know who David Menzies is. And they've had reporters from the Rebel at the national debates. They will not call Menzies a reporter. Like, they will not do it. Also, and I find in the last thing I'm going to mention about this before I turn it over to Dave Kelso here is that Chrystia Freeland has been really she did make one comment about this being a democratic society and you have to respect the rule of law and so on and so forth, but she in no way has she either said anything for or against what has occurred there. It looks very much to me like she's hedging her bets, but what the 500-foot view, and by the way, the video itself has 15 million views, so it's gone viral. What it looks like to me is that this was a botched fake takedown attempt that got called, and they've actually put themselves in some hot water because they went after a reporter on using really flimsy circumstances, and they got caught doing it. And the Trudeau bot farm and the MSM and Chrystia Freeland and everybody else, they're kind of like, they're getting all mealy-mouthed and talking about it like the MSM is basically doing everything they can to try to avoid mentioning that a member of the Canadian media got arrested by the government. But it's looking very much like it was like they don't want to actually admit that they arrested a reporter on really flimsy evidence. And I don't feel sorry for this police officer, because at the one that did the arresting, I take it at this point that Rearson has seen the report. The guy who did the arresting is this particular bald guy. His connection with the convoy and the fact that he may have participated in that. Like, his name is going to get released at some point. They are going to go over his record with a fine tooth comb. And if it turns out that he was in the Ottawa area when this happened, that's going to be yet another bombshell on Trudeau and the Liberals, on top of all the other bombshells they've had. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelso.
Alrighty. Well, of course, it's fair to mention, and people could do their own research on this. Of course, don't take my word for it. In general, Rebel News is provably controlled opposition. Now, let me clarify. I'm not saying that every single person who works there is controlled opposition. I'm saying as an organization run at the top, it's controlled opposition. I'm sure there are some people working there that are part of the controlled opposition and other people that are not. Just like there are people that work for government agencies that are not a part of fucking us over. They're just regular people, and they've drunk the Kool-Aid, and they believe the stories that they're told, and they think that they're actually there to do what they're told that they're actually there to do, and whatever. I'm not saying that everybody working everywhere is controlled opposition, but Rebel News itself at the top, it provably is, and people can go do their own research on that. And there is specifically a Mossad connection, but like I said, people can go do their own research on that. So it would not actually surprise me if Rebel News at the top was working in conjunction with, local government to, set up David Menzies, and David Menzies may not be controlled opposition. And if he's not, well, he'd be the perfect one to set up now, wouldn't he? And plus, if I recall correctly, I think he's the same guy that did things like interviewed Greta Thunberg and was asking, why don't you stand against all these, billionaires all flying into Davos at once on these heavily polluting private jets? You're all about the climate stuff, so will you say anything about that? And Greta just would not answer him. And all Greta could say is, I own 20 private jets and I fly on them all the time. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Menzies who also did that. Could have been somebody else, but I'm pretty sure it was Menzies. It's hard to keep track of all these people. But yeah, I mean, as far as what happened, kind of paraphrasing from how Max Egan might describe it. When a ring of faggots in uniform, yeah, faggot unicorns. No, a ring of faggots in uniform surround you and beat the living shit out of you, that's called due process. But when you look at one of these guys the wrong way or slightly bump into them by accident, well, that's assault. And how dare you? This is yet another one of those displays of exaggerated, rules for thee, not for we sort of things. It's one of those examples of we, the government, can shit all over you as much as we want. And because you, the people, not even in the so-called truth movement, you don't have any real actual unity, and you bicker amongst yourselves and are sitting there waiting to be saved and whatever other keyboard warrior shit you're doing, and you're not really putting any sort of even basic grassroots front up against us to create any positive change, to do anything. Well, because of that, we can just piss and shit on you all we want to. And guess what? We're going to, and we're going to keep doing it. We're going to do everything that you allow us to do because you guys got no unity yet. It's like the American Declaration of Independence clearly admits to, when it says, the people will suffer any evils until they are no longer sufferable. In modern terms, I like to put it as, for as long as the people have a roof over their head, food on their table, and an internet connection, All they will be is keyboard warriors, and they won't unite, they won't do shit, they'll expect other people to save them, whatever that specifically looks like for the individual, whether they're a conservative Trumper or whatever the hell they are, whatever that looks like. There's all different types of people who think and believe all different things in regards to that. But they're just going to sit on their ass until reality falls on their fucking head and threatens their livelihood. And then, as long as they're not too angry, narcissistic, and so deranged and fucked up by that point that they just choose self destruction anyway, provided the lesson actually hits home, then and only then are they willing to see the bigger picture. Only then are they willing to unite with others around them towards, freedom and etc. And, a lot of people don't take into consideration when you talk about unity, no, it doesn't have to be storm the Capitol or whatever the fuck. Like, it can be very basic grassroots stuff, just civil disobedience. The government says, you can't all grow those tomatoes and share them with each other because Zig Heil. Well, guess what? You grow and share those tomatoes anyway, and fuck you, government. Um, you want to work around all the economic bullshit, create your own local forms of barter trade and economic exchange that are outside of the system. People can do that, but it takes enough people willing to participate in that in order for it to work. If only 5 or 10 people are doing it, it doesn't really do anything. But if you've got like an entire town or something that have their own systems of barter and trade with each other that are outside of the regular system, that's something that's workable. So, unity doesn't mean, oh, let's all get together and storm the Capitol or some bullshit. It just means there's a lot of very basic civil disobedience that people can do that really will hurt the system. But, it's just, it's one of those things to where things have to get a lot worse before they can get better. And this whole thing that happened to this reporter is just yet another example of that, where government saying we're going to piss and shit on you as much as we want. We're going to make it increasingly obvious that we are your masters and you are our little slave bitches. Know your place, chattel. And we're just going to keep making it more and more overtly obvious as we continue to bring in communism, fascism, communitarianism, authoritarianism, whatever other words you want to use to define that. And, it's like the bully in the schoolyard. The bully in the schoolyard's just going to keep pushing you and pushing you and pushing you to see when or if you will even be willing to fight back. And they will just keep escalating, escalating, escalating. So that is simply just a part of that. The more people the people in general allow this stuff to happen and don't unite and don't stand up and say, no, you're not doing this shit anymore, well, guess what? The more they're going to do it, and they're going to keep testing the boundaries. This time it was one reporter. Maybe next time they'll just send in a fucking a squad of thugs in uniform to just arrest every reporter indiscriminately who's in an area and fucking send them to the Canadian equivalent of Guantanamo Bay, and you'll never fucking see them again. The government will be like, oh, we just did that. Are you people going to do anything about it? No? Okay. Well, we'll do something twice as worse next week. They're going to push the people and see what they can get away with, and they're going to keep doing it. And that's just a part of that. And with that, I pass it to Steve.
You need to unmute yourself there first, Rierson.
Okay, well, that would help. I don't remember. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, you were playing the video in the background, and
I was. Yeah, I was wondering about that. All right.
I was starting to think that the demonic multi-dimensional sex beasts had kidnapped him and were having lots of rapey fun with him.
Well, I assure you there were no ball gags involved. God.
Don't make me bring up Klingon breast milk.
Well, you brought it up. I still Klingon titty milk. I'm gonna have to pass because actually, now that I think about it, that's actually not a bad way to maybe describe Krista Freeland as well too. Because there's nothing feminine about that female.
You must suck the titties for the Empire!
There you go. Suck titty for the Empire.
Titties for the Empire. Well, considering that her grandfather was 3 degrees separated from Hitler, and she herself was a journalist, although I don't think she was much of a journalist to begin with anyway. I mean, there's a really, I can't call it creepy, but it certainly doesn't show any form of professionalism. She was interviewed, and she's chatting or emailing with her fellow sister in arms. I don't know if that's even the right word for it. And I've never considered her to be terribly professional to begin with. I consider the woman to be legitimately actually quite creepy, very creepy. But rules, yeah, as Kelso said, rules for we, but not for thee. It's all convenient, but
Wow.
that picture that you did send, that you did post in chat.
Rules for thee, not for we, you dyslexic bastard.
Thank you. I'll just say that the light beer has addled my brain just enough, so that's going to be my excuse, just like Christopher Phelan, and I'll stick to it. Everything that's happening in Canada right now is progressively moving one salami slice step forward towards totalitarianism. And I mean, it took Canadians how long until the trucker convoy started, and then the whole country just, well, not the whole country, but I'm pretty sure a very sizable portion of the population just said, fuck this. Finally, somebody's doing something. I don't see anything happening due to the overall pacifist nature that this country seems to encourage people to be. I know that my voice doesn't have the charisma, doesn't have the social status, doesn't have the attention that would be required to do anything. And I see that being, honestly, it's no different with David Menzies. And I will completely agree with Kelso about the whole thing of Rebel News being controlled opposition. And I have said it before as well. I mean, Ezra Levant admits to being a Zionist. So that calls into question everything that they do. And also part of the reason that I don't listen to Rebel News anymore. Sheila Gunn Reid, I know that she's local to me, is much more vocal and seems to be relatively level-headed. I don't know if I can even quite say that. And I will fully admit that I have said my opinion of Ezra Levant is that the man is he's an attention whore. He's a media whore. He loves to get attention. And he'll play it out. He will play it out for what it is. It will be interesting to see what happens when things finally turn around. And then I believe that when I'm hoping that Israel will finally be attacked, but it won't be by Hezbollah or Gaza or whatever else. But that's another topic. Nothing that happens at this point with Trudeau is really going to push Canadians until something really extreme starts to set in. And then Will it be too late? Will there be too many sheep that line up to the slaughterhouse? Well, there are enough that did line up for the fake experimental bioweapons, I guess would be one way to put it. My spouse included. So honestly, I don't.
Hey, Steve, on the bright side, just remember, you don't need most Canadians to wake up and survive. You just need enough to wake up and survive to outnumber the ruling class and their minions in order to win. You don't even need the majority to keep living. You just need a large enough minority.
Yeah, I mean, what came to my mind for number of people that need to survive to do that, 10% of the population would be enough to overthrow the ruling class, really. Survivors of. And that's another topic of discussion because apparently they're starting to ramp up the rhetoric.
Even 3%.
Yeah.
It was less than 3% that participated in the first American Revolution.
I heard that. It was about 2% actually that stood up and did something. But, well, speaking of which, apparently China is ramping up the rhetoric of Disease X now. So we'll see how long that takes before that crosses over the Pacific or crosses out, leaves China and infects the rest of the world. And we'll see how many people actually stand up this time. So we'll see. I don't know. But with Freeland for me is she really is just a useful idiot, but no doubt with her grandfather's connections and whatever else that she was elected to be elected. And we'll see. I mean, I suppose that there are warring factions within the NWO, the Mossad-controlled media, or governments or organizations, whatever the case may be. So I'm sure it's a case of, well, whoever plays themselves, whoever does the best play survives, and they're the winner. So I don't have anything to say on this one. Nothing really honestly surprises me about all of this. And if Menzies happens to be relatively innocent, which I believe to be the case, I don't know. But Levant, in my opinion, Levant's got to go just because I don't trust a word that the guy fucking says. I really don't. So on that note, my friend, let's move on.
And Klaus Schwab's daughter looks like a man. Just want to put it out there.
All right. Well, my first impressions of Ezra Levant were, because I remember him from the Calgary when he was an op-ed reporter in the political section of the Calgary Sun. Like, I remember reading his stuff, and it was like, has this guy actually ever held a job? Like, he seemed to be like, and I knew some people in Calgary that had dealt with him. There was a couple people who were around him that just said they absolutely refused to be. They just didn't like him as a person. Don't listen to the rebel enough to get the Zionist part. I do know that there is definitely a war going on the left right now over this and that. That's a beautiful thing to see. I've got varying opinions about Rebel news. Keep in mind, Rebel either fired or Lauren Southern quit the Rebel, and the Rebel was where she actually got her start. There's been no actual official story as to what happened with Lauren Southern there, but they did employ her, which, based upon some of the stuff that Lauren Southern is capable of doing some good reporting, but she will go in whatever direction seems to be most popular with her at the moment, and she will quite conveniently forget where she came from.
I would say what is most profitable.
What is most profitable. And she's extremely untrustworthy. But again, right, this whole thing looks like it was set up. And it's probably, I mean, it's not looking very good for the Liberal Party to begin with, anyways. But I mean, let's just move on to the next topic here. Now, this one is rather interesting because I said right at the start of the year that at some point, Rumble and X were probably somebody was probably going to take a run at one or both of those groups, both of those organizations, to try to get them to toe the line. Now, what happened here was that Wired magazine put out a story claiming that, and it is actually true, because it is a tactic that if you're trying to engage in a hostile takeover, you will report them to the SEC for something, and the SEC has to investigate. And what they got reported for was inflating their numbers. The only problem is that they can't inflate their numbers because they're going off Google Analytics. So they don't have any control over that. But because somebody filed a complaint, they have to go, and the SEC has to go and investigate anyway. They launched the investigation, and then Wired magazine, which is one of the leftist tech publications, pretty much all of the establishment ones runs this report.
By the way, that's very unfortunate because I'm old enough and have been into computers long enough to remember when Wired was actually good and not political. That has long since not been the case, but I do remember the good old days when it wasn't a cesspool.
Yep. Another one bites the dust. Well, Vice bit the dust harder than all of them at this point, but that's we won't go there, at least not today. So yeah, they did it. The CEO of Rumble, and he obviously knew what was being attempted here, and he tweeted out something on his. The hell is his name? Hold on a second. His name is. Come on. Oh, there it is. Chris Pavlovsky. He's actually from Toronto, too, by the way. Posted up that they were expecting something like this and they were prepared to deal with it. The tactic that was being used here is done, and I said that they were going to try and do something like this right at the start of the year. I didn't think they were going to do it right away, but I said they were going to try something like this. The aim is one of two things: to either A, buy out Rumble completely, or B, which is what they did with Spotify, which is get globalists on the board of Rumble. And once they're on the board, they can start undermining Rumble from the inside. Now, fortunately, again, like I said, Pavlovsky and the people over at Rumble were smart to what was going on, and they've been kind of expecting this, because more or less what happened with Russell Brand was essentially a Trojan horse attempt to take Russell to go after Rumble there as well. So Rumble's been expecting this, and Rumble has taken precautions. So they're not going to get somebody on the board. They're not going to be able to do a hostile takeover of Rumble, which is fortunate, because I did not know about what happened with Odyssey. Now, Odyssey is probably going to get bought up. And this is up for sale. Thanks, David, for informing me about that. It's probably going to get bought by a wokester, and it's either going to be completely shut down, or it's going to go woke, and then it's going to go broke.
Well, here's just to make sure everything's clarified and everything's said as accurately as possible. What happened is LBRY Incorporated, who owned, Odyssey and all that. The SEC was attacking them in legal battles. I'm not going to get into the whole thing because I got too many opinions on that. But I'll just say that Library Incorporated ran out of money to continue the battle, so the SEC won by default, of LBRY incorporated, just running out of money. So what ended up happening is LBRY Incorporated was forced to dissolve. All of the employees were forced to resign, and LBRY Incorporated and all of its assets has essentially been turned over to the SEC, so turned over to the American government. Who specifically is running it? Like, they got servers, they got infrastructure, this, that. Who's running it, if anybody? Is it on autopilot? Like, who the fuck knows? I have no idea what's happening. I every now and again I'll try doing web searches and stuff. I can't find anything on it. So it's in limbo. What I would like to have happen, although I don't know if they have the money for this, is once it goes up for auction or whatever the hell the process is, I'd like to see Futo, F-U-T-O, purchase Odyssey, because they're an organization that, I don't know how much money they have or not, but they back innovative open source projects and stuff. Like, they back GrayJ, they back Polycentric. There's a lot of stuff that they back monetarily, and it would be really great to see them scoop Odyssey up, because if anybody could do something awesome with it, it would certainly be them. Would they have the money and the ability to actually scoop Odyssey up? I don't know. I don't know how big of an organization they really are or not, what their finances are or whatever. I have no idea. What I can say is that people got to wake up to the fact that fully decentralized networking is going to be mandatory to, fight all of these attacks. You cannot kill a snake if there's no head and no snake. If everything's just a decentralized swarm of devices, you can't take it down. So just because a platform might utilize some decentralized technology to some extent does not by default make that platform a fully decentralized network. I'm not going to go on that rant about the differences, because that would take 20 minutes in and of itself. But for those who know well enough to know, or you want to do your own research, I've given you enough to chew on. So we'll see what happens to Rumble. We'll see what mistakes they make or not, or we live in tumultuous times, and people got to be more adaptable than they've been. There's so many mistakes that have happened that I saw years out, that I tried to tell people, hey, but like, oh, who's this Dave Kelso guy? He's nobody. Why should we listen to him? And whatever. But yeah, it just goes back to what I said about the Declaration of Independence, because even free and open source freedom tech, even those people, apparently, have to learn the hard way by reality dropping on their fucking head. So what happened to Odyssey is reality dropping on their fucking head. What's happening to Rumble is reality dropping on their fucking head. How many times does reality have to drop on these people's heads in order for them to finally figure out what the things are to actually do? When even a nobody like me can clearly say, hey, if you do this, then hello. But, it's whatever. We'll see what happens, won't we? Time will tell.
Rearson.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you've said before, is that Rumble is gaining traction, and it's being employed by conservatives, at least south of the 49th. So it is viewed as a threat. That's about the nicest way that I can say that. And just like the left lost their mind when Musk, or whoever Musk is, or whatever the case may be, with Twitter or X or whatever the fuck you want to call it. And they don't, and basically, effectively, U.S. government control, censorship was kicked out. I don't really see any difference between what's happened with Twitter, X, whatever, behind the scenes that we know about now, back in its glory day of Well, also being controlled opposition, or no, sorry, being the digital mouthpiece for propaganda arm of government agencies. The same attempt is being made with Rumble, and so far they've been able to fight them off, but shorting the stock is a tactic that I should have actually expected. I didn't. But I'm on Rumble enough, but I'm more on CrackTube for watching this, that, and the other thing.
By the way, it really red flagged with me once Rumble hit the stock market. I was like, oh my god, this is just opening the door for so much trouble. Why did they do this?
And you're not wrong. I mean, there are ways to get around it. Yes, absolutely. And the problem with myself, at least anyway, and I will fully admit this, is that I didn't like and I didn't care for anything that was in high school, at least anyway, business courses. Now, looking back, I would say something entirely and completely different, but hindsight is 2020, so it is what it is. Where or how the fight with Rumble is going to proceed from this point on going forward, I have not that I don't have any interest, I don't really have any idea. And there are other things that are on my mind that are more important and taking up more of my time. What I'm not sure of, though, is because it's headquartered in both Canada and the US, Toronto and Florida, I believe, is what Naroki has said in the past. Having two headquarters, does that mean that you can kind of supersede one and jump to the other when it's applicable? I really don't know. Regardless, though, is that the puppet masters are outright worried. And as we had talked about earlier before the podcast, or during, I can't remember, looking at how Google is just, or Alphabet, whatever the fuck they are, they're really doing their best to really tighten the noose and maintain as much control as possible on the YouTube platform. So I really don't see it anything more than just a natural progression and extension of these proxy wars, I suppose, and on the tech level, platform level, that have been going on for long enough, for at least for the last few years anyway, if not longer, at least as far as I can remember anyway.
By the way, I should mention that all these different forms of fuckery, when it comes to classical liberals, not the woke far left, but the regular classical liberals, which there are more of, they are starting to wake up more and more as they see this. And like, classical liberals are your typical blind believing, Kool-Aid drinking, really hard to show anything to because they still think that politically it's 1968 or something. But like, even my mom is starting to see a bit more than she did. Like, she's not fully on the same page as me. She still believes that the system can work and you have to vote and all this and that, but you know, she sees the scam of what Biden is. She sees the scam of what Trump is. Like, she's looking at the whole thing, like, you know, that she's still got a lot of cognitive dissonance, but you know, she is seeing a bit more than she saw a year ago. And if someone as politically stubborn as her can even see that much more, how many other classical liberals are also similarly starting to slowly wake up, you know?
Well, I'm going to include my father in that category because they did mention to him that he should start buying silver because things are not what the system's breaking down. And he more or less said, yeah, there's just something doesn't seem right, or there's something's going on. He doesn't know what, but something's going on. Or shall we say it's the fuckery that's going on.
You know, the other day, my dad was asleep on the couch. He tends to have the TV going, and by TV I mean a physical device, not broadcast channel. So some
Yep.
YouTube thing or whatever. And
Something in the background.
it was this conservative guy at some Trump thing or whatever, and this guy was saying, Trump needs you to be angry, and the reason Trump needs you to be angry is so that you can relate to his anger. It's like I was even talking to my mom about this, and it really, like, you know, when you look at what Trump and all the rhetoric has done for the conservatives, it's done a few things. Number one, okay, conservatives, stand down, stand by, sit on your hands, wait to be saved. The other thing is, keep getting angry. Well, when you look at angry people in general, what do they tend to do? They're not going to go storm the fucking castle they're really mad at. They're going to take out their anger on their friends and their family and immediate innocent bystanders and other angry people who are as angry as they are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically, my mom is starting to see that yes, Trump is there to implode the right, and Biden and other forces are there to implode the left so that this country can implode as a whole. Like, she's starting to see that. Whereas, like, you know, a year and a half ago, she'd have called me a conspiracy theorist for saying it. But now she's really starting to see, yeah, like, you know, the corporate powers that be are controlling it all and looking to destroy both sides. Oh, but of course, somehow your vote's still going to matter somehow because cognitive dissonance. But at least it's an improvement that they're starting to see.
It sounded to me like you sounded like Jim Willie. That's the only person that came to mind.
I have no idea who that is.
He's even more of a crackpot than you or I could be combined. But he deals in finances and apparently has connections. So listening to him is it's a bit of a wild ride. That's all I'm going to say. When I listen to him is when I happen to listen to him. I don't go out of my way to look for his content. But I do hear what you're saying. I really do. And for me, it's
well, when you point out inconvenient facts, it makes you a crackpot because that's an Orwellian term now. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength.
We're increasing the chocolate daily chocolate, or we're increasing the chocolate rations from 15 grams or 200, from like 200 grams to 100 grams.
Just don't increase the Soylent Green rations. That's Bill Gates' job.
Ugh. Isn't that where they dissolve the bodies and throw that into? Anyway.
I
just refer to things like, you know, Impossible Burger and Beyond Meat as Soylent Green. I mean, look, let me state for the record, I have nothing against things that really actually are plant-based, like for real, but the things that they call plant-based are chemical concoctions. Like, if you take the ingredients for Impossible Burger, Beyond Meat, like, they've got the ingredients publicly there, you can look them up, and you go ingredient by ingredient and you do a search and you look on these various official scientific websites as to what those ingredients are and do, they are some of the most unhealthy, carcinogenic chemical fuckeries that you could have. This is literally just, oh yeah, we're going to call it plant-based and non-GMO and all that, when really it's just a chemical fucking cocktail masquerading as food. So it's about as close to Soylent Green as you're gonna get in the year 2024.
Well, and that's what I've been saying about about the Beyond Meat shit, because that's really what it is that it is plant-based. They get all the ingredients that are all from plants. It's all vegetative matter. Doesn't say anything about the processing where it is still plant-based, or or the chemical fuckery that's added to it.
Oh, if you look at the ingredients, like there's one ingredient in there that's actually a laxative. That's fun.
Oh, good lord.
There's a bunch of different, literally carcinogenic, toxic, industrial chemicals that are in there. Like I said, I've gone over it's been a while, but I went over the ingredients list and looked it up one by one, and I'm like, yeah, I only wish I could be surprised by what I'm looking at.
Oh, God.
Okay, guys, we're really getting off topic here.
Yes, we are. Okay.
Yeah. So we knew this was going to happen. It didn't work. Given Odyssey's limbo status right now, though, Rumble is basically it in terms of options. There is still BitChute out there, but of the three of them, BitChute is the one that BitChute. I'm surprised BitChute hasn't gone under because of multiple lawsuits as well, but somehow they still keep going. Yeah, I didn't know about Odyssey until Kelso told me about it tonight. By the way, having taken multiple political compass tests, I basically come out as classical liberal myself. So, I guess some people pick it up faster than others. But let's get on with it.
I come out almost dead center, but just ever so slightly left, but not much.
I'm close. I'm slightly under the authoritarian libertarian line, like a couple of squares, but I slide to the left almost into the social democrat square. I'm centrist, but I would be like left center, well, classical liberal is what I would be. But anyway, let's get on with the next topic here, and this is the one.
Not communist liberal.
No, not that. Okay, so the next topic, and this one, again, right, and I'm not going to make any apologies about this. I had things not gone the way they had gone for me. I could very well see myself working in the film industry in some capacity, which is why I do cover a lot of Hollywood content. Some people find it superfluous, but you know what? Politics is downstream from culture. But the Golden Globes or the Golden Globes were held last week. Nobody really cared. Nobody really watched. In fact, so few people actually watched that very few people at the Golden Globes actually made political statements because nobody was watching. The only thing that stood out about it was that Jimmy Gaffigan made a semi-based joke, and it might actually have done something, except of course that Jimmy Gaffigan is an establishment leftist comedian. So, it's a sad statement because the Golden Globes were kind of like the precursor to the Oscars. So the winners of the Golden Globes, which I will look up when one of you guys talks about it, there's a very good chance that whoever wins Best Movie, Best Actress, whatever, at the Golden Globes has got a very good, strong lead on who wins at the Oscars. So that's where the Golden Globes. However, the Golden Globes covers both television, media, and film. So, yeah, like I said, it's
when Soviet humor is semi-based, it's a sad state of affairs. So my question is, what was the semi-based joke? What was it?
Oh, Jimmy Gaffigan said, "Well, I don't know why I'm not doing so well in Hollywood. Maybe it's because I'm not a pedophile."
Yeah, I'd have to say that's pretty good and pretty ironic coming from. Well, it's Soviet humor, pretty much. It's Soviet humor.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, while you guys are talking, I will look up Golden Globe winners because that again, I made a prediction about the Oscars, but when one of you other guys is busy talking about it, the thing, I mean, again, the rating don't they haven't released the ratings for it, by the way. And that's something I'm noticing that networks are doing more and more frequently. They're hiding the ratings or they're not releasing them for a week or two. Um, Something that's becoming very common. I looked everywhere. I haven't been able to find any ratings for the Golden Globes, but I'm going to have to mention that they were quite low because award shows. By the way, I used to actually up until probably about 2013 or so, like the Academy Awards. Like I literally at points would take a day off to watch the Oscars. I haven't done that in years. Rearson knows why I don't do that. And it's because, it's, well, they got all the quotas going on with the Oscars to boot now, which is just basically declining the quality of it. But you know what? Hopefully Kelso goes on for a while so I can look up who the Golden Globe
Yeah,
Award winners are.
I got something semi-related that could help make the point. It's not directly related, but it does tie in. Um, the other day, I saw this video titled something similar to why Star Trek Legacy isn't happening just yet right now, or something similarly phrased. For those of you who don't know what Star Trek Legacy is, I will briefly explain. Um, Basically, the third season of Star Trek Picard went exceptionally well. It wasn't woke. It was basically classic Trek in the style that all the hardcore fans like. And the ending of it was kind of a cliffhanger that can essentially lead to a spin-off to where Seven of Nine, played by Jerry Ryan, is the captain of the Enterprise G. And the idea behind Star Trek Legacy is that with her as the captain of the Enterprise G, so it's like basically you're mixing like older and newer generation Trek, but without going woke, is that besides doing a lot of slowly passing the torch to newer characters, newer generations, and all of that, as Star Trek has always done after periods of time. Um, there's a lot of different backstories all through, Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, just a lot of things to where there were different smaller storylines that were not fully fleshed out. And like, hey, whatever did end up happening with Captain Sisko, and like the list goes on and on. So Star Trek Legacy can also be an opportunity for a lot of guest starring and a lot of smaller incomplete stories to be able to be wrapped up in an episode or two and then move on to the next. And so it's kind of like partly regular Trek, like TNG style episodic, but also kind of partly anthology at the same time. And the fans want it. All the main Star Trek cast people, all the the people who played all the characters that we've come to know and love, they're all for it. They want it. But they say that the problem is like with the shows they have going on right now. There's a couple of Star Trek shows that are in the works and going to be rolling out. Plus, Discovery's going to have its final season and da da da. They say, oh well, the money isn't there. And yeah, it's partly right, but what they don't go into is why the money isn't there. The reason the money isn't there is Get Woke, Go Broke. That's why the money isn't there. Because one of the things that Get Woke, Go Broke did, especially within things like Star Trek Discovery, pointing at that hardcore, is things were so fucked up within that on so many levels that a lot of things had to be reshot and reshot again and reshot again and reshot again. So 10 tries to get a scene right, that kind of thing, redone, reshot, read this, read that. And every time you redo something, it costs a hell of a lot of money. Every time you do anything for a movie or a series, it costs money. It doesn't just magically happen for free. So a lot of money has been hemorrhaged and wasted. So had they not hemorrhaged and wasted so much money, and were they not in recovery mode right now, trying desperately to get things back on track, then yes, there would be money for Star Trek Legacy and whatever else you want to do. But the reason it's not there is because Get Woke, Go Broke has the effect that it has. Go figure. Imagine my shock. So hopefully Naroki's done looking up what he wants to look up.
Yeah, I have looked it up. Go ahead, Grierson. I'm not done yet.
Yeah. The Golden Globes. Oh, God. I'm sorry. After we did the show with Ricky Gervais, or Gervais, whatever the fuck his name is.
You got it right. Continue.
Which one? The first or second?
The Ricky Gervais one.
Yeah, the Ricky Gervais. And he just outright insulted pretty much everybody there. Well, you all know Epstein. Don't fucking lie. And it was just one of those, oh, good Lord. For me, and again...
Shut up. I don't care that he's your friend. I just don't care. Just shut up. It's hilarious.
What? It's all jokes. It's all for fun at your expense. And it was... My opinion is that he was calling them out. I mean, there was the whole thing with Isaac Cappy and calling out Spielberg by name, Seth Green by name, and I can't remember who else was on, Tom Hanks. And I remember Robin Williams also describing the Golden Globes as being the foreplay for the Oscars. So what Naroki had said earlier, where the trend tends to continue to go from one platform or one program, let's think about that word for a moment, shall we, folks, to another. So I never gave a flying fuck about the Golden Globes. I never cared for it. A long time ago in my life, probably the better part of about 25 years ago, somewhere around there. That's when I actually cared, not knowing any better, being happily part of the matrix of the program, or whatever you want to call it. I did have some interest in the Oscars. And I remember it was a common thing as well, too, with the Golden Globes for, celebrities that were nominated and who might have actually won. They had a tendency to not be there, ever. So, I mean, there was a rather strong level of, I don't know if I would say contempt, but I don't give a fuck sort of attitude with them being there. So, to me at least, anyway, it was one of these are people I'm never going to meet, or at least I'm never going to be friends with. These are people in industries that I have other things in my life that are more important. And Chris Evans just flashed into my head, and Naroki has been critical of the man, stating that he's not the brightest light bulb on the Christmas tree. He's great for what he does, but what I really think that he has anything more than two brain cells to rub together, that's outside of his sphere of influence, not really. I think that my son could probably have a deeper intellectual conversation that he could put together.
By the way, didn't Naroki's prediction about Mr. Hulk guy saying something stupid come to pass immediately?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo. Oh God.
What was the stupid thing that he said?
Oh, he posted up a deep fake of Donald Trump on Epstein's plane, and when he got called on it, he blamed Elon Musk instead of taking responsibility for himself.
Oh, shocker.
Yes, I know. I'm stunned.
Yeah. Well, you can't be more stunned stupid than he is. I mean, like he's starting to hit every branch down the stupid tree as he's falling further and further down, going out of his way. If it isn't hitting him squarely in the head, he somehow manages to get a tree branch go up his ass. Oh, sorry. I'll leave my comments about what I think he probably does with other individuals to myself. I'll leave it at that. But anyway, I think that with Ricky Gervais and what he had to say back in 2019, 2020, I can't remember what year it was, that was probably the most watched that the Globes have ever gotten. And it really came down to, we don't fucking care I don't care about the rest of the show. His intro, his 10 minutes of going off on everybody there was the best thing I've seen. Up to that point, I'd seen in a long time. The guy that they got there this year, Coy Joy or Joe or Joy Coy, I can't remember the guy's name is. That's how forgettable the whole thing is. I would not be the least bit surprised if this was one of the lowest watched Golden Globes to date. So for me, at the end of the day with this one, it's a case of meh, whatever. See ya, don't want to be ya, and I really don't give a shit what happens anymore with the Golden Globes, because as far as I'm concerned, it's irrelevant. Like, it really is irrelevant, especially with what's going on right now in entertainment. I don't know if you heard this one or not, my friend, but just to kind of push this, there was a deleted scene from the Marvels that has surfaced, and someone's got a bone to pick with Disney. That's all I'm going to say. There was the Valkyrie character from the Thor movies, who, funny enough, had her hair braided just like what we saw with Madonna like last year, where she was early last year. That was the first thing that shocked me. And then there was the assumption that the 16-year-old Muslim girl, was married to Carol Danvers. And then it was and then it was said of strap in. I was like, wow. Someone in Disney is really, really pushing the envelope here. But someone had the common sense to cut that out, because same-sex get-togethers and Islam don't work out very well traditionally. So, this is why, folks, that the entertainment industry is slowly fading into, I won't quite say obscurity, but it's not what it used to be. So, fuck them all. I have no fucks to give, because I have the relevant temperature across the province of Alberta is about how I feel towards the Golden Globes and really anything in the entertainment industry. It's cold, and it's pretty much dead if you leave it outside long enough. So,
Steve, I got a meme for you at the bottom of the chat, which sums it up perfectly.
Okay, what do you got?
Oh, I'm saving that one. That one's going on the slideshow.
If Naroki likes it, then yep, pretty much. Barren. Yep, that's a nice way to put it. Nope.
Okay,
Also,
so
yep, you summed it up. I got nothing more.
I took a look. Barbie got nominated for 7 Golden Globes. The only one that they actually won was the one that they give to the highest grossing movie of the year. Ryan Gosling got nominated. Keep in mind, it's usually actor awards. It's not usually technical in the screenplay awards. This is usually about the performers at the Golden Globes and the directors and so forth. Greta Gerwig got nominated. She didn't win. The woman who played Barbie, she also got nominated, but she didn't win. It got nominated in multiple places, but it only won one. That's going to be, again, so I'm still gonna go out on the record. I'm gonna still say it's gonna be between 5 and 8 nominations. They're gonna win at least one, maybe two. And since feminists are so starved for victory, they will spurg right the fuck out and they will ruin it. But again, just like how Kathleen Kennedy is doubling down, because, well, you see, Barbie was a woke movie and it did well. Therefore, I can do this stuff with Lucasfilm and it's going to do just as well. No, it's not. It's, you know, you're going to get one. I mean, Gerwig, and I'm going to point this out about it before I move on. Greta Gerwig wanted to discredit the manosphere so badly that she adapted basically almost piecemeal lines in scenes from both The Matrix, Fight Club. Well, actually, Ryan Gosling's characters, like literally, I don't know whether Kel still saw the movie or not, but Ryan Gosling's character is like almost like a clone of Tyler Durden from Fight Club.
I did see Barbie, if that's the movie you're talking about, and I have told you that, and I said that it is everything that you said it was. I said that multiple times on multiple shows, remember?
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit tired tonight, so, but yeah,
Okay.
no, Ryan
Yeah,
Gosling
but
is like
it is
literally,
everything that you said it was.
yep, it is Brian Gosling's character, Ken, is a clone of Tyler Durden. And here's the part, and you will never see any feminist publication, although I got to point out something. Of the 7 prominent feminist publications from 2016, there's only one that's still active. They've either all gone broke, or they are in a very much reduced capacity. But I mean, yeah, this is one of those, just like how all those fat activists have all been dying off early. Feminism isn't the grift that it used to be. So, I mean, feminist publications are just going to absolutely spurg out when even if Barbie wins one Oscar, because they are that starved for a win. But yeah, it did win one. It will probably win one Oscar. I don't think it's going to go to Ryan Gosling because they gave it to Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, which is absolutely a believable word because I also saw Oppenheimer. And Robert Downey Jr. is absolutely brilliant in that movie. Very tough act to beat. But with that, let's get on with the next topic. Oh, this one. Oh, I don't know if I would call this one wonderful. I would, however, call this one as, oh, well, color me surprised. The Iowa school shooter, which I ignored at the time it was taking place because it was like, oh, look, another school shooter. Yawn, yawn, yawn. Well, guess what? And I know both of you guys are just going to be absolutely stunned and shocked and may have to reconsider your entire worldview over this. But Dylan Butler was part of the transgender mafia. And yeah, shocker of shockers too. He was on the FBI radar before he actually did the incident. And it was literally announced. He literally announces it on Discord, and the FBI and the local police drag their heels to get to the event. And of course, the mainstream media covered up the fact that Dylan Butler was all of these things. So,
Oh, well, Naroki, don't forget, gotta understand, these days, violence is defined as words people don't like and you offended somebody. Now, if you do a mass shooting or you burn down a Walmart, that is a mostly peaceful expression of defending the rights of oppressed minorities, blah, 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 and it's only naughty words that is violence. So this mass shooter wasn't violence because trans people can't be violent because they're not saying offensive words. So they are committing mass murder and mass arson and whatever in the name of defending the innocent whomever the fuck. And also, of course, because this is what happens when they go off their meds. And I don't mean the hormone ones, I mean the psychological ones.
oh yeah, I'm sorry. You're going to have to repeat that over again because both me and Rearson have decided that we're both women and we can't understand big words because I said so.
Identify as an attack helicopter. How's that?
I know somebody who does, but I don't talk to him anymore. Anyway.
And so, yeah, no big shocker.
My pronouns are don't give and a fuck.
What can I say? Again, I did go into this on the preview for 2024 show. You're going to start seeing a ramping up of this. You're going to actually see full-blown fights and potential riots break out during Pride Month. You're seeing companies routinely trying to sneak, and I think they're doing it because of DEI. They're doing it because of ESG requirements. You're seeing various companies, sports teams, etc., trying to sneak LGBTQ content into their stuff, and they're doing it on the sly in order to prevent getting a backlash. Like, for instance, the Philadelphia Flyers played a game against Montreal and threw in a Pride Night. And I mean, I'm getting to the point now where when I see the rainbow logo, I am at the point now where I'm just assuming that I'm dealing with an intolerant gay leftist. Whenever I see the rainbow logo, especially if I see it on their Twitter profile, I just assume I don't even bother trying to explain logic to them, right? Like on Instagram when I saw this, because the Philadelphia Flyers saw it, and it was like there's this one guy.
It's a microaggression to call them gay. They are a non-binary unicorn.
Yeah, you have to explain that to us again because, like I said, me and Rearson, for the duration of the show, have identified as women, so we can only think on an emotional level. How
can you identify as something that cannot be defined? You're a racist. It doesn't have to make sense. Just go with it.
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. And even though I define as a woman, I actually will also define as a homophobe and a misogynist, even though I have just identified as a woman. And you could all just go with that too. Rearson identifies as GIMP friendly, just so everybody knows, and he's now become a woman. Yep.
Wow. That's nice to know. I'm glad someone's taking charge of my life when I wasn't asking for it.
Rearson identifies Justin Trudeau as a sexuality.
Oh. I'd rather cut my dick off if I actually keep that, but that's another story.
Yeah. So
anyway.
So yeah, the whole issue around this is that, I mean, what I'm just going to relate this experience.
Make sure the government pays for your surgery when you cut your dick off.
So the Flyers had Pride Night. So the Flyers had Pride Night, and it was like there's a couple people, and it's like, and somebody kind of like threw a joke. It's so when are they going to throw in? When are they going to throw in a heterosexual Pride Night? And of course, a couple of fucking snarky LGBTQ members. Well, every night is straight night, and so my response to that was, "Oh, it is? Well, then show me where it is on the schedule, because I don't see it." And I got accused of being a homophobe for pointing that out, and my response was, "Well, how is pointing out an actual verified fact how does that make me a homophobe, right? Like you said quite literally that every night is heterosexual night during the Philadelphia Flyers home games. So
The same way
you
that it
said it.
makes you a Nazi, sailor.
Oh, exactly. I'm a female Nazi misogynist, and somebody's probably going to clip that at some point when I become famous to try to use it against me. Be my guest. You're going to look really stupid when I come back with the debunking point that that's an actual joke.
Hey, I've got video of me literally in an authentic World War II Nazi helmet doing the right-handed salute. It's just I'm making fun of the COVID Reich while I'm doing it. But feel free to take me out of context because that's what all degenerate people with no facts to stand on do.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really all I have to say about it. I'm going to turn it over to Kelso.
I think I've said all I needed to say. I've made all the comments, cracked all the jokes. Like, I don't think I got anything more. Oh my God, the FBI knew about something and let it happen, and people didn't want to disclose that the person who did the thing was a wokester. Well, imagine my fucking shock in my best Paul Joseph Watson imitation. Like, what else is there to say that hasn't already been said yet at this point? What difference at this point does it make? We came, we saw, he died. Earth, earth, earth.
Grierson. That's really deep, Grierson. As always, your commentary is just right spot on.
Grierson, stop watching the Justin Castro porn and join us, please.
Grierson. Grierson, are you there?
I think it was a mistake to give him that free trial of Orange Man Bad Hand Bomb. I think he's heavily focused on testing it out.
Yeah, Grierson. Yeah, you will come back with the report on the Orange Man hand bone for 253.
Sorry, what was that, Scoop? No, sorry, I don't do that. Okay. Sorry, I had to step out. I'm assuming it's my turn about
Yeah, it is.
Considering how far the penetration is with the various administrations, especially on the state level, Illinois, the Pritzker family, who seem to be profiting, I'm sure, as the allegation goes, with the providing the medications, shall we say, for transitioning. And the governor of Illinois, which I believe still is Pritzker, well, of the Pritzker family. Pardon me for not being terribly surprised by any of this shit.
Yes, that anti-freedom, anti-Second Amendment, wokester, communitarian, WF piece of shit, freaking young global leader motherfucker, our governor, Pritzker. Yep.
No, well, you're a governor, not my premier, but anyway.
It's the latest thing to come out of Klaus Schwab's ass. And I'll remind you all again, Klaus Schwab's daughter does look like a man.
Okay, that's a photo I'd rather not look at, but continue, Grierson.
Well, you have to pardon me for not being terribly surprised with all of these spiderweb connection, shall we say, when it's all, these are all part and parcel components of. I mean, we're supposed to be focused on when it hits the news, and law enforcement is dragging its ass because it's got a ton of lead in its pants before they do anything to, well, to get the emotions are raging, typically on the left and on the right, for people that are still, yeah, I'll call it for what I think it is, stunned stupid, and will happily give up whatever it is the government wants to feel. Those that give up some security for safety deserve neither and will lose both. I think it was something to that effect from Benjamin Franklin, I believe. And this is part of the Hegelian dialect, in my opinion.
Those who would give up freedom and liberty for temporary safety deserve neither and will lose both.
Thank you. I wasn't too far off, but it was. I knew it wasn't the exact wording.
Mine isn't exact either. It's just closer.
We're in the ballpark.
Not to be confused with the song by 9 Inch Nails called Closer that literally says, I wanna fuck you like an animal.
That's nice. I will pass. Thank you, though, if you had any.
Actually, it's a fairly good song, but continue.
Anyway, if you can take yourself out of the picture, you can put your emotions aside, go up 40, 50, 60,000 feet, and to try to get a better idea as to what at least going on, or at least go 5,000 feet up, whatever the fuck it may be. It should start to dawn on some people, not all of them, but some, that the it's all fucking connected. And I'm not going to bother to put on a tinfoil hat, although I hear that plastic is a much better way to keep your brain safe rather than having metal on it, because, you know.
By the way, I gotta ask you, I don't know if this happens to you, but whenever I see someone left, right, or center, whether it's a so-called truther, a raging leftist, or a Trump tart or whatever, when they're like, you have to fill yourself with hatred and anger against the, insert the enemy here, otherwise you are the enemy if you're not filling yourself with hatred and anger. I always imagine right away just an image of Palpatine from Star Wars. Embrace your anger. Let it make you powerful. Embrace your hatred. Turn to the dark side. Whether it's left, right, or center saying it, it's like I'm always thinking Palpatine when I hear that. I'm like, did you people learn nothing from Star Wars? I mean, before it went woke. Did you people learn nothing?
Well, I mean, I
don't know about you, but does that ever come to mind when you see that? And you're like, Palpatine much?
Well, I keep thinking about Clayton Bigsby from the Chappelle Show and the black-white racist. Fill your heart with hate, embrace it. Hate him all. And I'm like, that's just me. Continue, Rearson.
Hate them all equally. That's what Bob used to say. Anyway.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
I've actually, what came to my mind when you were going on that little bit of a tangent, Kelso, is, oh, Anakin, do it. You know, and it's just one of those, but do it. So. And
let us also remember that Anakin was just as much of a whiny bitch as any of these raging truthers, degenerate leftists, or Trump-tard conservatives.
No, he was a Gary Sue, but he was needed to get the whole thing going. But anyway, we'll leave all of that alone. Anyway, I mean, having people react without thinking about it is really what the powers that be want to do. When 9/11 happened, I was the first hour, maybe two, I was already growing tired of it. And then I had to go to work that day. And people that were in the little bar that I was working at were insisting on having it played. I'm like, oh, God. Okay. Fine. We'll do that. But this is also years after that I read The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail that kind of opened up me to the world of conspiracy theories. And then throw in Behold a Pale Horse. And for me, it was just not resonating. Like, I couldn't follow it. And then right after it all happened, the Patriot Act was miraculously all put together, ready to be passed. And that was, I don't know how many hundreds of pages of legalese that was all thrown into. It was like, But at the time, in one form or another, I was more ahead of the curve. So what's going on with this guy, whatever, tranny, messed up, chemically messed up, fucked up person, it doesn't do anything for me. I'm not invested in this story, and I'm not going to be, I'll be honest. So at the end of the day, I don't care. Like, I really honestly don't care. This is more government fuckery that someone like my father, or I'll mention his name, Tim Reynolds from my days at Lake Louise. It's people like that that will hopefully start to see what's going on and hopefully wake up. So, fucking whatever. I just don't care anymore. I really don't. And that is all that I have to say on this one. So, back to you, gents.
If you only knew the power of the backside of the Force, you will be penetrated.
Yes, Emperor Palpatine. Thank you,
By the way,
have
Steve,
another. Yeah.
Fun little video I put in the chat. You've probably seen it before. It's a classic of mine, but it was just topic appropriate.
Oh, is that racist? Oh, it's the law of penetration.
You would eat the bugs. Okay, here, let's go on to the next topic here.
Are you familiar with that old documentary called The Secret about the law of attraction? Well, instead of the law of attraction, it's the law of penetration. So Klaus Schwab is using the law of penetration. Yeah, it's only like a 1.5-minute long video or something. You can watch it later. Or you can even insert it when one of us mentions penetrating the cabinets. You can just randomly insert it. But it's one of the much shorter PSEC episodes. It's like a 1.5-minute long or something.
Okay. What the hell? All right, I'm going to mute myself. Go ahead.
Okay, so, yeah. This next topic is about Coach Red Pill. He tentatively was a member of the Manosphere. I agreed with, he had a lot of good points to make, and I did actually learn some stuff from him. He also did stuff where he clearly contradicted himself, and I mean openly and completely contradicted himself. He's at one point, he went on Kesey and Noble and was talking almost sympathetically about men going their own way and the red pill, and then he would talk about black pillars, and he would talk about black pillars like they were MGTOW, about how they were disgusting, and he held them all in low. So he wasn't consistent. Which kind of, but I mean, he wasn't grifting. The part that, hold on a second. The part that always stood out for me with Coach Red Pill, and I wasn't the only one who made this observation about him. He reminded me of that smug fucking know-it-all kid back at school that would say stuff, and I mean, this was Gonzalo Lira's stick, was that he would say whatever it was he was going to say, and he would say it confidently. Now, most of the time he was right, but there's a lot of times he was wrong. When he got arrested, when the war broke out in the Ukraine, I didn't know that he was in Ukraine. I had assumed that because he's Latino and that he was speaking in English, that he was somewhere in the West. Apparently, he wasn't in the West. He was in Ukraine. He was actually in the second largest city in Ukraine, which I did not know. He immediately disappeared. Like he just fell right off the map. Turns out what had happened to him is that some of the local law enforcement found out that the Azov battalion was gunning for him and arrested him and put him into protective custody because it was the Azov battalion. He got released, and when he was released, there was a very strong suggestion with him that he leave the Ukraine because he was putting his life in danger by staying there. He did not leave. Now, what ended up happening is that I can't remember the name of the publication, but it was somewhere in the U.S., basically ratted him out to the Ukrainian authorities again. He got arrested again. The evidence that looked like they had on him looked about he allegedly had these 3 books with him that were basically Russian propaganda. The other problem is when they showed these books, the spines didn't even look like they'd been opened. So basically he was framed. And this publication in the US started openly gloating about it. He disappeared for a few months, and then he came back, but he didn't come back to broadcasting or anything like that because they'd seized all his equipment. But I mean, he was being held under detention arrest pending trial. You know, this was the point when Gonzalo Lira decided that it was time to fuck off. He really only had a couple of places that he could go, but he tried to make a run for the Hungarian border, and he got pretty damn close. But instead of just trying to quietly cross the border, before he gets to the border, he puts out this long rambling tweet, which gave authorities on the Ukrainian side time to identify these tweets and identify him. And those were the last tweets he ever put out, and then he just disappeared again. A few months later, they admitted that he was being held in jail. Well, as it so turns out, he caught pneumonia in jail and got really, really sick, and were refusing him treatment, and he died 2 days ago. The whole thing. Well, first of all,
read as they injected him with a Pfizer special, and the inevitable happened.
Yeah, well, the whole thing. Well, I mean, when he got arrested the second time around, there were people speculating, well, why the fuck did he not just give him the content he was making? In his being critical of the Ukrainian government, like, why the fuck did he not just leave immediately? And there was some speculation because, again, Gonzalo Lira had a particular style, which really could pick. I mean, he could really piss people off. He wasn't necessarily truthful all the time, but he had this kind of confident, in-your-face way of talking about things that if you were a liar and dishonest, and you didn't want your bullshit getting called out, Gonzalo Lira would be a guy who would attract immediate hostility from you. The whole...
Well, I'm very confident and in your face, which is why I always pad the disclaimer. I'm not an authority. I just have my own opinions. You can agree, disagree, think I'm stupid, whatever. All good by me.
Anyway, unfortunately, Gonzalo Lira, aka Coach Red Pill, and by the way, he did produce a lot of. I was sub to him for a while. He did produce some decent Manosphere content. Um, yeah, he wasn't my personal favorite because he would just like he wasn't asking for money. He had a Patreon, but he wasn't asking for money. He wasn't like doing a blatant grift, but I mean he would say stuff that would contradict himself. And the criticism that he may have been an agent for the Russians, though, there may have been some veracity to it because it's like, yeah, okay, Gonzalo, when the Russians cross the border and the local law enforcement takes you into protective custody because the Azov battalion is looking for you, right? When you get released, you leave immediately. You don't hang around in Ukraine and continue to make fucking videos. Again, right? This same sort of thing damn near got Tim Pool killed a few years ago. Tim Pool, and this is part of the reason why Tim Pool doesn't travel nearly as much anymore because his face is too well recognized. The last 3 times Tim Pool left the United States, he went to Venezuela, and somebody, probably multiple people, informed the Venezuelan authorities that he was there, and he started getting multiple death threats on his Twitter. And fortunately, he had enough brains to understand what Spanish was and got that he was getting death threats and that there was public figures doing television shows calling for him to be killed. So he very quietly got in a taxi at 4 o'clock in the morning, went to the airport at Caracas, and took the first goddamn plane out of there. The next time he went to Sweden, and well, he wasn't threatened in any way. The authorities there made him feel very, very unwelcome. AKA, they were following him around everywhere. He would be having trouble. He had some troubles getting some rooms. He had people he was going to interview that backed out on him in the last minute without any explanation. It was like he was describing his visit to Sweden was among the creepiest visits that he actually had ever done. And then the last thing that happened to him was that he went to Germany with Lauren Southern to cover what was going on there. And somebody leaked the fact that he was attending this event, and they suddenly found themselves getting a whole lot more interest than they were expecting from Antifa, including individuals, one of whom they actually sort of semi-confronted, who were following them around and texting.
That reminds me briefly, back in 2014, Max did a talk in Germany, and he had to get the fuck out of there real quick because he likes to talk about topics that the German government likes to deem as being illegal and punishable by like 10 years in prison. But before he left, he was told by somebody there, "Oh, wait till you see the fascist anti-fascist." He hadn't known about Antifa yet. He's like, "Fascist anti-fascist, what does that even mean?" Then he saw Antifa in Germany for the first time. He's like, "Oh." So everything you were saying just brought up the memory of that.
So yeah, they actually had to go into the back of they actually had to go and hide in the back of a bar and call a cab, and they all jumped in the cab and left. I believe that's how the story went. But yeah, someone tipped off Antifa that they were all covering a story in Germany about Antifa, and Antifa was actively following them and broadcasting presence to people. And Tim fortunately has enough security background training that he spotted this individual, and they got the hell out of there. And after that, Tim Pool no longer travels internationally. His face is just too well known, right? Thing is, though, is that Tim Pool was smart enough to get in particular with Venezuela, he was smart enough to get the fuck out, right? Like, The fact that Gonzalo Lira did not leave Ukraine after being put under protective custody by the local police kind of suggests that maybe he, and this is something that got, like I said, this is something that got suggested in a couple of things that I saw about him when he tried to cross the border. Um, why did he not leave immediately? You know, the fact also that he was doing a lot of manosphere and red pill content means that, I mean, if he puts himself in a vulnerable position, there are going to be people, and he broadcasts everybody to where he is. There's going to be people online that are going to alert the authorities to where he is. And that's exactly what happened. And yeah, he did die of pneumonia in jail. He's now dead. It was also commented, just a couple of other comments before I turn it over to Kelso here. Um, one one comment was, well, if he was a transgender basketball player, they would have released him almost immediately. And it was sort of like, yeah, the Biden administration pushed hard to get Brittany Griner removed out of Russian jail. Like they traded an actual arms dealer, like an actual criminal, for what might be a transgender basketball player who hates America. Although I don't think she hates America quite as much now. And the other thing that comes up with him is that there was, except for some media on the right and people in the manosphere, nobody else has covered this. And I'm also going to lay one more thing out, that website that published his location to the Ukrainian authorities bears some responsibility in his death, just as much as the actual Ukrainians did. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dave.
Well, I think about all I got to say on that, other than my brief little comments that I've interjected here and there quickly, is that it's yet another example of the choice point that is created during the process of awakening and reality setting in and hitting, that the person then has one of two options. They can either start to realize what the right things are to do and to start doing them, or they can do the stupid self-destructive thing because their mental state is already so wrecked that about all they know how to do is the stupid self-destructive thing. Well, apparently this guy, to quote Indiana, one of those Indiana Jones movies with the chalice, if you remember, he chose poorly. So, he chose to win himself a Darwin Award and just kind of self-destruct. It's unfortunate, but that's the choice that everybody faces when reality finally hits them in the face hard enough. People's cognitive dissonance, and like most people, like society's kind of raised people with this Jerry Springer, WWE reality TV sort of mentality. They're addicted to drama, among other things, and so they've got their dysfunctions. It's very similar to a hard drug addiction. So when you've got somebody who's addicted to crack or cocaine or heroin or whatever it is, at first they won't even admit to themselves that they have a problem. Then finally, when they do finally get to the point where they realize, oh, I think I might have a problem, then the choice is the same. They can either go into rehab, get the help that they need, and straighten themselves out, or they can self-destruct. So all these different, paradigms and mental things and, stuff that society raises everybody with. I mean, from individual to individual, it's greater or lesser degrees. Some people are lucky to not have that so thickly, where others are walking dumpster fires and everything in between. So yeah, some people, when reality hits them, they self-destruct, and other people make the wiser choices and do their best to go on a better path. And this guy, for whatever reason, self-destructed. Like you said, one would think that it would be the not so common sense. I don't believe in common sense because it's not so common anymore these days. If it used to exist, it don't anymore. It would be common sense, air quotes, to think that, oh yeah, I'm in the Ukraine. I got people gunning for me. It's pretty obvious now. I need to get the fuck out as of like 5 minutes ago. Like you would think, you would hope that most people would have that kind of reflex. They wouldn't have the reflex of, I'm not only going to stick around, but I'm going to broadcast my location to people who don't like me so they can report me to the authorities so that I can be arrested, killed, etc., whatever. Yeah, some people just do the dumb shit thing because their minds have been warped by whatever societal programming, whatever trauma they've been in their they've been through in their life, whatever bad habits, personality quirks, what have you. And like you said, this guy seems to have been a bit beyond confident to arrogant. Whereas, like someone like me, I've got a lot of confidence, but I'm happy to admit everything I say is my opinion, agree, disagree, whatever. Sounds like people like this guy are more authoritative, like, oh, no, 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 I'm the only one that's got it right. You got to bow to me as an authority. I know what's going on, and you're just wrong, and da, da, da. So people like that have a lot of blind spots. So, and they tend to talk themselves into a lot of stupid bullshit too. So, with his self-righteous attitude, he might have thought, for whatever his reasons were, we'll never know. He's dead. He can't be asked, and unless you've got a good enough psychic medium who can make contact, he might have gone into arrogance mode, like, oh, I can stay and I could do this, and somehow I'm untouchable, even though I've actually been captured and gone to fucking jail once already. But I'm an arrogant son of a bitch. I'm just going to be delusional and think I'm untouchable, even though I was already touched once. What could possibly go wrong? Fuck around, find out, end up 6 feet under. This is the way some people are just going to go, whether they're liberals, whether they're conservatives, whether they're so-called, truthers, whether they're in the Ukraine, in the United States, in Canada, whatever it is. When reality hits, they're going to make the choice they make, and the ones who do not have, shall we say, terminal paradigmal damage, will hopefully make the more wiser choices and increase their chances for survival. But people who are just too mind warped that they are in the hopelessly terminal stages of that, they're just going to end up winning the old Darwin Award. And I don't really know much about this guy, although I do remember the story when it was happening, because Naroki, you had covered it before, and I remember that. But yeah, like, to quote the Indiana Jones movie again, he chose poorly. And we'll never know why. We'll never know what was running through his head unless you can get a good enough psychic medium to contact him to be able to ask. But barring that, we will simply never know. Just like we will never know just how many brown stains are in Rierson's underwear. So I hand it over to you.
Wow, it's really starting to get a little personal here. I'm almost offended, almost.
Sorry, that's just my macro aggressions because I identify as an attack helicopter.
Right. Well, as long as your attack helicopter mode doesn't have... Oh no, I'm thinking depleted uranium, but that's the Warthog. Never mind. No, I believe I was critical about him at the first time that we brought the whole thing up, of get the fuck out. Now, I remember that he had called out the videos of people that were running through the square in Kharkov or wherever it was, and there ended up being video evidence of it being basically a film set, and it was all staged. So I'm assuming his mindset at that point is like, well, nothing's happening, I'm gonna fucking stay. I mean, I remember reading about Ukraine and how it is probably the most corrupt country on the planet. One of them, anyway. Like worse than Pakistan, for example. He had to have known this.
Yep,
I mean,
it's right up there with South Australia and Israel.
well, Canada's on that list now too. Let's not kid ourselves. But anyway,
Again, you said it wrong. It's China.
Chinada, however you want to say it. Tomato.
Well, I did pronounce Australia wrong, but I will pronounce New Zealand, aka Nazi land, correctly.
You mean New Zealand? Anyway.
And then there's Australia, aka Apathralia. But anyway.
Yeah. Now, if I remember correctly, I believe he was married to a Ukrainian woman. And I mean, she probably would have known or should have known as to how things operate, at least on a below the surface sort of level, kind of bordering, I would say, on the black market sort of level. But I mean, he was what, Argentinian? I think he was. He was South American, and to kind of go with the stereotype, shall we say, of Latino people from Latin America tend to be hot-blooded, and one could almost say confrontational. That's kind of the opinion that I have towards what he may have been like, as Naroki had pointed out, of him being.
Are you talking shit about Angel again?
I'm not going there. I am not going there. I've got better things to do than talk about that individual. Anyway, at the end of the day, the guy knew that things were starting to get bad. And whatever his motive was his motive. And he didn't leave. So my immediate mental reaction when I saw that he had, according to his father, he's passed away, is that he had it coming. He knew that somewhere he should have known that he should have left the first time when he got his warning to get the fuck out. But he didn't. He stuck around and he kept doing what he was doing. If he was more focused on the red pill content, he'd probably be alive right now. Is it what governments want to talk about? No, not really. But at the end of the day, it's a lot more. That would be safer than to call out the Khazarian mafia's antics. To call out the antics of the Khazarian mafia and everything else that was going on in Ukraine, and if you're not being patriotic, then yeah, they're going to take. Most countries are going to take very well to that if you are there and you're not towing the line. So, unfortunately for him, this is all on him. Now, I've watched a little bit of his stuff, not much, but a little bit. But he's had no real influence on my life. And in light of all of this, I don't want to be speaking. Well, I've already badmouthed the dead already, so I might as well just finish off with this. But I mean, if this is what he's like, I'm glad that I never did listen to any of his content, because Lord knows I might be a little bit more messed up than I am already right now. So While it is unfortunate, and I don't want to see anybody die, especially under circumstances like this, especially if it's completely avoidable, he had himself, at the end of the day, my opinion is that he had only himself to blame. So I don't have any more to say on this one, my friend.
It's kind of like when you've been told all about the nasty adverse events of the Pfizer poke, but you decide to take the poke anyway, and then end up dying suddenly. It's just like that, but the Ukrainian version.
Oh, that's not a bad way to put it, and you're not wrong. You're really not wrong, but I'd apologize for being more critical and more logical on the whole thing, but the dumb fuck knew better. Like, he really did know better. But I'll leave it at that. Roki, I'm all done.
The true definition of stupid is knowing better but doing the thing anyway.
Well, I mean, yeah. He was the guy who was very, 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 very full of himself. And, you know, I just, you know, and I hate to say this because, like, I mean, you know, because it actually, you know what, fuck it, I don't really give a shit if it triggers somebody. It's like, you know, it's like doing something really stupid and being, like, going into a crime-ridden area and getting pissed off. And getting robbed, and then getting pissed off that somebody points out to you that you brought it on yourself because you did something really stupid and went in, like, for instance, don't go into a fucking crack house, right? You're putting your life in danger. Don't go into a crack house to get an addict out of a fucking crack house. You're putting your life in danger. Don't fucking do it. And it's one guy in the program told me, well, I gotta try anyway. It's like, don't do it. And yeah, he went in to get somebody out, and he came out dead. Right? Now, his motives for doing it were pure, but it's like, did he bring it on himself? Yeah, because he was told not to fucking do it, right? And it's the same thing with this guy. He was told the first time around that it might be in his best interest to leave the Ukraine. He did not do it. Now, was he an agent? Maybe. It's also equally likely that he was just full of himself and just thought that
I've
was
noticed
going to happen to him.
Sometimes arrogant people that consider themselves patriots for the truth or whatever, they want to go out in a blaze of glory, and oftentimes they do. I don't think this was really so much of a blaze or glory per se, but it might be the same sort of mentality that he's going to die for his own cause or whatever. It's like, it's not wrong to die for a cause, but goddamn, don't make it a pointless death. Like, if you go out in a blaze of glory and you've accomplished nothing in the doing of it, you've literally just wasted your life.
Well, I mean, he does have his content, which is out there, but I mean, again, right? You know, it's like, like, look at the fucking reading on the wall, right? Like, leave. You know, that's really all else I have to say about this. Let's move on to the next topic. Okay, this is the one that had Kelso all confused. Steve Crowder has deleted most of his, I mean, it's all archived, and you can still get it at Louder with Crowder, apparently, but he's deleted most of his social content off YouTube, Rumble, etc., etc., etc. And his reasoning for doing it is that, in considering what he's gone through in the past year and a half, where he had to deal with a really serious heart condition, and then his wife basically tried to pull the hostile divorce thing on him, and started to run a smear campaign on him. And unlike Destiny, Crowder had enough brains to actually listen to people in the manosphere and took precautions. And as a result, his wife and her lawyer are not currently trying to screw him around. But I mean, he has gone. I mean, apparently, and this is something I'm just kind of like reading in between the lines here. Crowder can probably be a rather difficult person because remember, not so gay Jared, right, Rearson?
I'm watching him with Nerdrotic, for example. Love it.
Yeah,
I've
he's
seen
not.
I've seen I've seen at least one video clip, like he insinuated. This is old. This is back in the Trigglypuff days. He kind of hinted that he was at the very least bi in a rant that he was giving to Trigglypuff. Like obviously he swings more towards chicks, but he does have that touch of gay. And I've seen a video where he admits it. Like there's a parody song I did called "Hungry Like an SJW," where I've got a short clip in the middle musical interlude where Crowder's doing a little, like talking at Trigglypuff and telling her off. And I think his exact words were, "I've got some fat past and some faggot past here today." In other words, like
Oh,
he was saying, yeah, I've done that. Like to me that clearly reads as he's bi. He may swing more towards girls, but he is bi.
well, I mean, my concern about his interaction with Trigglypuff is that did he have enough brains to, if he actually stuck a microphone in her face, did he keep the microphone far enough away to make sure that Trigglypuff didn't eat it? Is Trigglypuff actually still alive? Because his rationale for doing what he did is, I think in his words, I think he's probably reached a point, and this does happen to YouTubers from time to time, right? They just got to back away for a while. And this was Crowder's own words. He had to step away and touch grass, like get back to reality for a while. He's not quitting outright. He is going to be taking a break for a while. I suspect the divorce probably is a big part of that reason why he doesn't
You know
want.
that's the thing. I always take constant breaks from social media, and I'm not constantly cranking out content. That's why with the PSEC stuff, you see it uploaded in spurts. It's not like a regular schedule. I know better than to burn myself out. I know to go do the gardening and touch the grass and get the hell away from the computer. I know that. I wish more people knew that. They'd probably have more sanity and more brain cells left.
Well, I mean, the internet, and this is something that at one point even got like back in 2020 back in the summer of 2020 when the mainstream media and a lot of the internet was basically trying to give everybody the impression that if you were opposed to BLM and you didn't want to get the vaccines, that you were basically alone and by yourself. And it wasn't, ironically enough, though, it was somebody on, I believe it was YouTube, who said that that's what they want you to believe. They want you to think that you're on your own. That got me out of it. The internet, yeah, I have to make sure that I'm paying more attention to this as well. It's really important, especially if you're going to be attempting to make a career online like I am, that you do take time out to touch grass and take a break every once in a while. Especially if you're doing it like daily, because that can be a real grind. And I think from the 1,000-foot view with Crowder is that he's had enough. He's had a medical issue, and then his wife fucking turned on him, and there's a really potentially ugly divorce coming up, and there are certainly enough people. The first guy that springs to mind, Ethan Klein, but there's more than a few people right now that would love to take that divorce and just run him right through the mud over, because we were just talking about Coach Red Pill, right? Um, that I think Crowder may have. This is just me speculating. I suspect Crowder just didn't want to have to deal with all of that on top of everything else that's happened to him. And unlike Gonzalo Lira, Steve Crowder has enough brains to go, yeah, you know what? I think I'll just take a break for a while and I will get all this other stuff outside of social media settled and in my past before I come back. That is just me talking. But yeah, the way Crowder aired it out, it was sort of like, yeah, no, being online all the time is taxing emotionally, mentally, physically. I've gone through some real personal difficulties in the past year and a half to 2 years. I am going to be dealing with a lot of other issues coming up in the next few months. And while he didn't say he didn't want his enemies using that as smear material on him, I think Crowder has just kind of like reached his limit and he just needs to pull back for a while. Because I mean, it's like when you're in, just like with Hollywood celebrities, and this is something that I'm not looking forward to myself because I may have to do it at some point. You have to follow, kind of retreat into a bubble. And if you don't have the connections ahead of time set up, or if you don't work on them when you're in there, that bubble can become very suffocating. And there's a lot of stories of celebrities who allowed that bubble to suffocate them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelso. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelso.
Yep, just give me a second. Anyway, yeah, I mean, everything you said. And uh, I mean, as long as his previous content still exists, which apparently it does, then okay, that makes sense. As you recall, before we started recording, that was my speculation. I'm like, well, at least if he's got it in an archive somewhere, it still exists. Fine, it's whatever. Um, but yeah, like I said, like even with the PSEX stuff I do, and even getting on other people's shows like this one or whatever, it's just like I take all the time I need to pull back away from all of it, and then I jump back in and I do more, and then I pull back and I go back and forth. I do that constantly. That's why PSEX stuff is in bursts. Like sometimes you'll see months go by with not a single thing uploaded to any of my channels, and then all of a sudden flood of content just suddenly, and then it'll pull back, and then another flood, sometimes a small flood, sometimes a bigger flood, but I'll go back and forth because when you pull back for a while and then you jump back into it, you have more enthusiasm, like you're excited to do it, you're more productive, you're in the swing of things, you're doing good, you've got that zest for it, because after that hiatus, then you're looking forward to getting back into it. But if you're just doing it constant with no breaks whatsoever, like you said, it gets emotionally, mentally, physically, and in every other way exhausting and taxing. Even if you're not a big name like Crowder, even if you're just, someone like me who over all of my different channels maybe has a total of 5,000 subscribers. I'm sure most of which are just kind of passive here and there, and I probably maybe only have a couple of dozen that really pay close attention all the time. But, even someone small like me, it can still be taxing because, it takes a lot of time and effort and all of that. Not only the physical processes of creating it, dealing with the software and the machinery and this and that and whatever, but even the topics themselves can be taxing. Like, I'm not one of those channels that's all bunnies, kitties, rainbows, and positive all the time. Like, yeah, I've done plenty of positive stuff and funny stuff and whatever, but I'm not a I'm not afraid to get, deep and dirty on the darker stuff. I always do my best to put a silver lining on the dark cloud and, put that positive spin on it. Like I said to Rearson earlier, hey, it doesn't take even most of Canadians surviving to win against the fascist state in Canada. It just takes a large enough minority. That's called a silver lining on the dark fucking cloud. And this is what prevents you from getting depressed enough to jump off the nearest fucking bridge. Uh, so yeah, a lot of these topics can be grating, and you don't want to be focused on it 24/7, day in and day out. It can drive you nuts and even potentially suicidal. Don't do it. Take breaks. Go walk in nature and pet some dogs and kitties and take in the fresh air and whatever. Step back. I don't even own a frickin' smartphone because of this. I've got a dumb phone. I've got a flip phone. It's a burner phone that I can activate it in a prepaid way whenever I want to, whenever I need it. It's not currently. I use Skype for most of my communications. But, I know that even with just smartphones, how crazy that drives people, that it's this digital ball and chain that's constantly driving them up the wall. And, people will tell me, oh, Dave, oh, you need to get a smartphone. You need to get a smartphone. It's so great. It's so convenient, da da da. But then beyond that, all they tell me is about the latest complaints and annoyances and aggravations that smartphone has caused them. And I'm like, dude, you're a really shitty salesman with this. It's like you say, oh, I need to get one of these, but I don't have all these aggravations that you have by default of me not getting one of those. So you say, oh, get one, it's great, but then you're bitching about all this aggravation it causes you. Uh, don't go work for a car lot. You're not going to sell the car. It's like you're not going to sell the phone. So yeah, I definitely understand how all this shit can drive a person crazy. Um, so it's definitely important to take breaks and pull back, and I think that Crowder pulling back, it's a wise decision. He's saving his sanity. And from what I understand about him as far as the divorce stuff, yeah, I've heard, like, he's not a bad guy, but he's not necessarily the easiest to get along with. He's kind of passive aggressive, like people who he feels intimidated by, he'll take the more passive, quiet beta mode. Like, how many years did it take for Crowder to get comfortable with talking to Alex Jones? And during that process, Alex knew he was intimidating to Crowder, so he'd always kind of pop up at Crowder's events and jokingly razz him a bit and laugh. Well, Alex didn't do anything seriously belligerent, but he was kind of poking fun and being a little bit of a troll, and you could see Crowder just kind of shrink in on himself and go quiet and all that awkward stuff. Now that doesn't happen because they've gotten to know each other well enough over the years that Crowder's gotten comfortable with him. But, that's the more passive side. And, of course, I've heard that people he's not intimidated by, he's definitely got a more aggressive side to him. If he's feeling that he's on the more confident high ground, he can be a bit of a dick. Not saying he's a bad guy. He's definitely not perfect. But, yeah, so, and I think maybe this passive aggressive aspect of him has been partially caused by the aspect of his personality where until now, he hasn't taken breaks and he's been all gung ho. And now he's had enough experience where he's starting to realize, whoa, maybe I need to take breaks and pull back and have a little more focus on my emotional, mental, and physical health, and not go so far gung ho until I go so far that I'm 6 feet under from a fucking coronary or an aneurysm. So yeah, I agree. He is making the smart choice. And speaking of smart choices, like avoiding things like volunteering for anal probes from aliens, I hand it over to Rearson.
I don't know what I've done to deserve all of this attention, but okay, I'll go with that.
You didn't drink the breast milk, and you sinned against the Empire.
Bachlach or Gach or whatever else is. Don't ask me. That's the extent of my knowledge of Klingon stuff. But to each their own. Well, in terms of, I had some ambition of being more active on podcasting, but I've just shrunk myself back to this platform, and because I was appearing regularly enough on Jaffe's show, but I need my time for myself, and for me to do this once a week or twice as is required is honestly that's enough for me. I don't need to do any more than that.
Oh, that reminds me, within the next few months, we do need to get together on a little hangout to talk about the book that you read, or listened to rather, audiobook version. But no rush, sometime within the next few months or something, but we still got to get to that.
Yeah, no, we do. And that I don't have a problem with. Oh, by the way, Seattle will not be happening. Anything that could have gone wrong did, but I will give you the rundown if you're interested. But it's not happening, at least not now. Nor will I think it's going to be happening with my friend that I've excommunicated myself with. Anyway, I sympathize with Crowder's decision to take a break from it all. For myself, I'm really only active on Telegram, and there were seven or eight channels that I regularly would read through. I'm now down to 2, maybe 3. 3 is pushing it. And at this point now, I'm doing my best to detach myself from it all. Now, I haven't had anything dramatic happen in my life, although I'm trying to get out of where I am and my relationship and all that other fun stuff. But comparatively speaking to Crowder, I live a very, very boring life, and I'm happy that way. So it's not something that I need to go into. I mean, something kind of similar. Hearing about Linus, was it Linus Tech? Something like that, the YouTube channel. And they
Linus Tech Tips.
Thank you, yeah. I mean, that star has fallen. They were putting out content so much on a weekly basis that it was just nonstop. And they've burned out.
Yeah, Linus kind of fucked up in a lot of ways too. I'm not going to go into a big long rant about it, but he made some dumb mistakes and really dug himself a deeper hole than the initial hole.
Yeah, and I've looked into a bit of what was going on, and there was he said, and comparisons and hints and innuendos and whatever else, and that's fine. Whatever, that's just how things ended up degenerating. But they were putting out too much content that they were getting called out for their errors and their methodology. But anyway. All things being equal, for Crowder at this point, he needs the vacation. He needs the time. I mean, it's no different than what happened with James O'Keefe. He needed to step down and step out for a bit, and he did. He was out of the spotlight for about 3 to 4 months, and he's back at it again, going at it harder than ever. So,
in fairness, he did get ousted though, because Veritas got infiltrated.
Yeah, no, and in all fairness, exactly. But revenge is not even a dish best served cold. His revenge was piping fucking hot and spicy as all hell.
because he got a new company. He's in more control of it, I believe. And at the end of the day, he's doing more than he was doing before. And Project Veritas is basically falling off the face of the earth, and no one gives a fucking fuck about it anymore.
What is his new company, by the way? I haven't even really checked into it since all the kerfuffle.
OMG, O'Keefe Media Group.
Oh, okay.
So that's about all I have to say on this one, my friend. So let's get moving and get you to bed as soon as we can. Once you unmute yourself, of course.
Because it's almost quarter
Yes,
after.
Naroki needs to get to bed because he's just jonesing for that Orange Man bad hand bomb. He already hit himself in the head with the memory rock. Now he needs to go the next step further. And the tinfoil hat didn't really do him any favors when he hit himself in the head with the memory rock. But
That was because the tinfoil hat shielded me from the memory rock.
It's these crazy sponsors, man. You got to do something about it.
Oh, well, I mean, we still need to work on that travel brochure for the Martha's Vineyard wall of shit. Okay.
Oh God, I forgot about that. Anyway.
So anyway, we're gonna finish up with the tech sector. First one, and I'll go A, B, C, and then Kelso, and then Rearson can take us out. This is the first one. Is AI slowly setting up to replace real women online? There have been, and I have actually encountered them on Instagram. Women that some of the photos now are starting to look so real that you will actually, and they've got Chat GPT and whatever style programs which enable them to respond intelligently. So they make you think that you're actually talking to a real person. I got fooled by one myself. She looked incredibly real, and I didn't realize until I actually started going into her photos that she was actually AI. And then you kind of I took a deep look at her. Her looks were a little too perfect. But that's the issue, though, and this is something that's been reported multiple times in multiple places. The photos are getting so good now that if you don't know exactly what to look for, you can be very easily befooled into thinking that these are real women. Now, they haven't gotten this technology to the point yet where these women are actually engaged. Like they do have cartoon porn and cartoon strip, and they do have that, and some of that actually looks very realistic, but they haven't gotten this new next level technology to the point yet where they can actually use these photos in motion to do complicated motion yet, but they will eventually get there. Now there are some depth, and this has been pointed out by a few people, by some of the people who've done this, right? You don't have to worry about paying them. You just have to worry about producing the content. You don't have to worry about psychopathic boyfriends barging in and interfering on your content. You don't have to worry about a woman, like an AI woman, going out and getting multiple tats and piercings and having a drug problem or an alcohol problem or having some type of mental disorder, which most women apparently seem to have these days. You don't have to deal with an entitled slut. There's a lot of things about dealing with AI women that you don't have to deal with when you're dealing with, as opposed to with AI women, that you do have to deal with when you're with real women. This is part of the reason why the love dolls are starting to take off as well, right? Yeah, okay. Ultimately, and this, by the way, I don't own a love doll, just so we can make that official. The Orange Man hand bomb is good enough for me. the love dolls are getting very realistic, and yeah, it's just a hunk of plastic, but once you're done, all you got to do is just a little bit of cleanup and you're done. Now, of course, right, you get individuals like Turd Flinging Monkey that have full-blown relationships with their doll, and that's a little bit creepy and weird. And a
What?
little bit mentally, yeah. Turd Flinging Monkey, Celestina. Oh yeah, I talked to DDJ about this. He's got like a full-fledged, like he didn't marry the doll,
Oh
but
God. Might as well.
I mean,
By
he's
the
got a
way, how's DDJ been? I literally haven't seen him anywhere in forever.
he had a medical condition. That's really all I'm at liberty to say.
Oh, okay. Because he's been pretty well ducked out.
Yeah, he has a medical condition. That's all
Okay.
I'm really at liberty to say.
I know. I'm not pressing you. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I noticed his absence and only now thought to inquire.
Yeah, so yeah, these AI women have a lot have much fewer drawbacks than real women do, and this has also been pointed out specifically by men in the manosphere. And if you take a look at podcasts like Whatever and Fresh and Fit, and again, not every woman on these shows is like the highlight reel show the women at their absolute worst. And yeah, not every woman is like the absolute worst examples, especially on Whatever. The ultimate point, though, having actually, because I mean, I really don't have much patience for a Whatever podcast because they go on for hours and hours and hours, and I usually don't have hours and hours and hours to watch or listen to a lot of content. Very, very clear that, I mean, keep in mind, these are women who are OnlyFans models and Instagram models and porn stars, so they're not a typical representation of real women everywhere. But at the same time, though, and so it's a yes and no thing. Each one of those women have personal groups of other women that are not doing those things. So, having looked at it all collectively and seeing how few women know about what's going on in the manosphere, is it any surprise that guys are just like getting sick? Because, like, I mean, basically, with a guy right now, any move you make on a woman is wrong, according to somebody. Which, by the way, is one of the biggest selling points that MGTOW has. It's like, well, if every move is wrong, then just go your own way and do your own thing and fuck what society says. That's one of the biggest selling points of going on with MGTOW right now. So yeah, that you're slowly starting to see fake women replace real women because, again, real women have real fucking attitude problems and real issues and real negative traits that make them undesirable, especially this younger crowd that's coming up now. Now, topic B is, and this I'm pretty sure Kelso's going to have a lot to talk about on this one. YouTube is making some changes at the end of January, coincidentally just before the election cycle gets started, which allows YouTube to quote unquote censor sensitive content. Of course, the version of what sensitive content is, and I have two ditto marked hands up as I'm saying that, is, of course, as vague as humanly possible so that YouTube can pretty much censor anything and call it sensitive content. The consensus that I saw from what I saw online is that this sensitive content moniker is probably going to be used by YouTube to censor anybody who's critical of Antifa or BLM or anybody on the Democrat side that engages in any form of political violence. That's going to be the quote-unquote sensitive content that's going to get censored. And
not to mention, it's not like we are lacking in continuous deaths from the pokey poke So anything within the medical sphere of that, I'm sure, will also be deemed as sensitive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I mean, again, right? The only thing I got to say about this, and again, I was going to say Odyssey and Rumble just got that. Odyssey, Rumble, and BitChute got that strong, but I don't know what's going to happen with Odyssey. So all I'm going to say is Rumble and BitChute just keep getting stronger. And oh, by the way, I noticed that Brighteon is somehow still functioning and going along a lot stronger than it was a couple of years earlier when I was using it. So yeah, that's a bit of a surprise.
That's because they are getting better. Like right now, my only complaint with Brighteon is that for some weird reason, it likes to double space everything in this weird way. What like for descriptions and comments and things. One of these days, I really want to have like an on-screen PSEC episode where I like go over the different like alt-tech social media stuff and like point out the pros and cons and just give a tour. It just hasn't been a priority.
That actually might not be a bad idea for an episode down the line. Oh, and of course, and I said this at the start of the year, you were going to start seeing waves of layoffs. Media companies haven't gotten around to it, but the tech sector has already started. Pixar, Google, Discord, and Twitch. Pixar is on the verge of collapse, but then again, Pixar did Buzz Lightyear and Elemental, which combined lost almost $600 million last year. Like they made up a huge chunk of Disney's financial losses, up like almost a third of it. Like keep in mind, Disney lost close to $2 billion, plus the fact that they didn't have the theme parks bringing in the revenue that they needed to countermand the losses that they're making on the film end. Google, that's not a surprise. You need look no further than what is going on. And Louis Rossman talked about this at one point. His personal interpretation of what was going on with YouTube is that he thinks that YouTube is basically acting like somebody that's going through their couches trying to dig up spare change. Because what happened with YouTube, which by the way is owned by Google, is that when they did that ad, when they tried to pull that stuff with ad blocker, what they also did at the same time is they started ramping up the commercials on the content on Google, on YouTube. So, and how do you ask me how I know this? Because I don't have ad blocker when I watch YouTube on my phone, which is why I basically only use it to watch music videos for the most part, because they don't run ads on music videos.
My dad uses the YouTube app a lot on his Amazon Fire Cube, and he's been bitching about how there's more ads. So I can confirm that, even though I don't have ads personally, my dad is plagued with them, and he complains about it constantly.
Oh yeah, they really ramped up the ads. They just like they blew them right through the roof. So yeah, part of that has to play into what is going on big picture with Google. And again, Raging Golden Eagle said this about Google several years ago. You know, oh sure, we can lose $1 million here, we can lose 50 million here, we can lose $1 billion here, we can lose X here, we can lose X here. We're a big, because this is the way woke leftists do things. Oh, I've got plenty. The company's making plenty of money. We can afford to take a risk here, risk there. We can afford to lose money here. We can afford, and the next thing you know, well, what ended up with Google was going to go. Google is very close to going the way of Disney, right? They can really only afford to take a couple of more hits now, and they're going to be in the same. That's what Disney was doing. Oh well, we can afford to keep making movies that aren't making money, because the theme parks are going to countermand that. Well, now your theme parks aren't making any money because you chose to insert yourself into what was going on in Florida. And you got caught posting up stuff online, of getting caught having video conferences where you clearly showed you have executives inside your company that are clearly not particularly sane. And the revenue they were getting from the theme parks disappeared. Well, not disappeared completely, but it wasn't enough to countermand what they were losing on movies. And they lost close to $2 billion last year. A lot. Don't know too much about Discord. Well, the one thing I have noticed about Discord, though, over the years, and I haven't had very much experience with it because I found Discord to be kind of annoying, is that, if you want to, basically, if you're on our side of the line and you wanted to find a group like ours on Discord, you had a very difficult time finding it. If you wanted to find Manosphere and Red Pill content on Discord, you had a very difficult, you have individual creators who have Discord channels, but greater Manosphere groups, nope, none of them ever really took up because they basically did the same thing that YouTube did. They throttled it. And of course, what happened to Discord is the same thing that happened to YouTube. That's going to happen to Google. Oh, and by the way, yeah, Google also now has, to no one's surprise, there are search engines now that are slowly eating away at Google's monopoly on the search engine. But the same thing with Discord. Gilded has started to fill in the gap. You're getting, and there's a lot of stupid, silly, restrictive rules on Discord. So yeah, I'm not surprised that people are leaving Discord. Twitch, well, we've covered Twitch on this channel a few times. I'm not going to go into every dumb decision that they made, but the most recent one around allowing artistic nudity and then basically having multiple people abuse that is just another example of Twitch making really dumb decisions over and over and over again and having it start to catch up to them, right? They aren't pulling as much censorship on Twitch as opposed to what's going on YouTube. But they just keep making these really dumb decisions. They keep they're removing people and then adding people and then not being consistent with the enforcement of the rules, especially when it comes to the adult content. And then, of course, I don't know the specific details, but apparently the president of Twitch is a massive pervert to boot, which maybe explains why Twitch is the way it is. Bottom line is that all of these companies are collapsing or they're laying off huge numbers of people because, and I may get some disagreement with this in the comments, but I really don't care. Get woke, go broke is a real thing. These tech companies did it to themselves by continuously posting up taking stands on issues as opposed to just, say, being a platform. They chose to act like a publisher, or whoever is, in the case of Twitch, just continuously making either inconsistent enforcement of rules or just changing the rules and not really fully understanding what that change was going to mean and getting egg on their face for doing it. And that's been my experience with these four companies, but I'm going to turn it over to Kelso.
Alrighty. I guess I will start with the AI stuff. All that stuff, it's kind of a double-edged sword. There's a lot of really nice positives about the AI technology where it can be used for productive, useful, awesome things. I'll just give one quick example. There's a YouTube channel, Owen Davies, Owen Davies, And I'm sure, as we all know, when it comes to a lot of the like older, like, 80s and 90s shows and stuff like that that, were on TV, the technology for that stuff was essentially VHS level quality. And most of these things were never, upgraded to full HD and all that. And when you try to watch these things on modern monitors and things, like, yeah, it works, you can watch it, whatever, but the quality levels are definitely dated. Well, this guy uses some sort of AI software program to actually go through and bring these things up to 4K Ultra. I mean, you could watch it at 720, 1080, whatever. It's got the options. But I've been watching some of that, and it is absolutely beautiful. It is absolutely amazing, the sort of stuff that can do. So this is an example of one of the good positive aspects of AI that could scan the pixels and make calculations and fill in and bring up the realism on recordings that were VHS level, look really shoddy on modern hardware and all that. Obviously, with the AI women, that poses a bit of a creepy problem. Thankfully, as far as I could tell, and regardless of the hype, we're not exactly in danger of Skynet taking over and the world being overrun by Terminator robots just yet, and no time real soon, regardless of the doom-scrolling hype. So, if someone at least has half a brain, and even if they're not uber technically inclined and don't know exactly what to look for, it shouldn't take too long to realize that these chicks are fake. Even as good as things like ChatGPT can sometimes be, I mean, they've got their quirks to where they out themselves as fake immediately. But even sometimes when they're doing a fairly good job, you can kind of give them the Turing test, if you know what I mean, and they fail very epically. And so it's pretty obvious. So when it comes to the idea of people having relationships with AI and whatever, except for those minority few creepers with the lowest possible standards when it comes to these things, people who are almost robots themselves and are barely human, except for that extreme minority, most people are going to look at that and be like, yeah, nah. Now, if it gets to the level of like holodecks on Star Trek, for those who know what I'm talking about there, then you might have some concerns. If you look at any of the different Star Trek The Next Generation episodes, you've got plot lines with holodeck addictions and people falling in love with holodeck characters and so on and so forth. Because that level of computing and AI technology knows how to make it so hyper realistic that it can pass a frickin' Turing test. So I don't think that the whole thing with the AI women is going to be a big problem anytime soon, but it's definitely a huge annoyance. Like you said, you come across an Instagram profile or whatever, it's good enough to, at first glance, think it's real at first, but then, like you said, it didn't take too long to kind of, see the obvious flaws and go, okay, I'm dealing with AI. So right now, the biggest danger is just adding more obnoxiousness to an already very obnoxious internet. So more obnoxiousness is something we really didn't need on an already obnoxious internet, but Clown World is what it is. So yeah. YouTube instituting changes that allows them to censor internet content. Yeah, it's just an extension of the usual vague, it is what we say it is and at any given time process. And if they've at least learned a few things and have gotten at least a little smarter, then most of that censorship will be shadow banning instead of overt. Instead of suddenly getting community guideline strikes or having videos removed, they will just quietly make sure that these things don't come up in relevant searches and are basically memory hold, without you being alerted to the fact that this has happened. So if they want to reduce the amount of backlash, then they'll do it that way, because it might take a while for someone to realize that they've been memory holed, but they instantly know when they get a notification, this video violates community guidelines because you're a white person and you have a video of a black kitty cat, and that's somehow racist and saying you want to oppress black people, or whatever the stupid pseudo-logic, anti-logic fucking bullshit is with that. So, if they're smarter, they'll do it the more covert, shadow banning way. Kind of like on Facebook. I haven't been slapped for posting content in a very long time, but I know for a fact that I'm heavily shadow banned, and I can tell. So, they've taken the covert shadow ban option with me. Another thing that should be known about YouTube, Facebook, and other similar places, and as far as hemorrhaging money, these places would not even be able to exist at all if not for government subsidies, and particularly the United States government. Without government subsidies, they would not be able to function, because that is their safety net. Wherever they're lacking in money from any other area, the let's make America Zimbabwe again money printing machine, the too big to fail, comes to the rescue for these companies. So until these services get so underused that they start to go the way of MySpace, then Uncle Sam and the WEF will continue to bankroll these companies for as long as there's at least enough people using the services to make it worth it for them to do so. As far as Discord, and there are plenty of videos out there and full-blown documentaries that say it way better than anything I can say, so I'll only give a brief summary. Discord was run by degenerate fuckers in the first place, and have only gotten progressively worse and progressively woke. And the censorship on there, like you explained, is terrible. There are many groups, as you said, not just manosphere groups, but many other types of groups that have tried to form on there and tried to share content and talk about things that are on the wokesters naughty list. And they end up getting effectively canceled. So, that's been a big problem with Discord for a long time. Plus, as you said about the interface being annoying, it's basically that they're trying to take IRC, Internet Relay Chat, and Skype and mate them together in a transhuman bastard love child, and it comes out with this weird interface that is really cool and really sucks all at the same time, which is just fire and ice aggravation. And a lot of the stuff on there is kind of buggy. I'm not even going to go into the details of the different problems, but let's just say that you could be in the middle of a conversation and suddenly Discord crashes for no reason, or suddenly the mic disconnects, or whatever. There's all these little glitches that could possibly happen because the app just isn't the most stable in the world. Like, these are the sorts of glitches that Skype used to be partly plagued with like 10 plus years ago that have been long since resolved. that Discord is still plagued with. So when you add in the whole run by degenerate wokesters, plus the interface has its default aggravations by being what it is, plus the various buggy instabilities, plus all of the censorship, and yeah, it's not exactly surprising that competing platforms such as Gilded have been getting more and more people, and Discord has been losing people because things just keep getting progressively worse for Discord. And I don't know if Discord is government subsidized or not, but it's really not a surprise that they are laying off people, and that these companies are collapsing, laying off, imploding, whatever. And I just think that we have a golden opportunity here, and this is definitely one of the things that in the coming months I should do a big long PSEC episode about, is why fully decentralized technology is of the utmost importance. And again, I will clarify, there is a difference between an otherwise centralized service using technology that is considered decentralized just in the nature of that technology. There's a difference between that and having a fully decentralized network in the complete honest scope of what that entails. One example I can give of something that is hyper-totalitarianly centralized that uses what is otherwise decentralized technology would be the ever-popular CBDCs. Oh, yes. Even normies look at that and want to run away screaming. So, yeah. Anyway, I will go on some big long PSEC tangent on that stuff some other day, some other episode. That's not for now. But the punchline is that people better start using fully decentralized technology in a fully decentralized way. Like the way Bastion uses it, for example. And not the way Odyssey used it, for example. So, yeah, I guess that's it. So, speaking of having fun with AI sex robots, Rearson, you're up.
Well, sadly, it's almost tempting, actually. It seems that, well, I'm coming to the opinion of looking at modern women and realizing, and I think I can't remember if it was Aaron Cleary said this or it might have been Terrence Popp and Company, I don't know. But we're seeing, I believe, the real nature of what women can really be like. And again, I will hearken back to the National Institute of Mental Health and having the enclosure of an enclosed environment of rat colony, and what happens just before their society breaks down is that the females are incredibly selective with the males. The males that are rejected hang out with each other, and they're called the pretty ones, I believe is what they were called. And it didn't take long before they snapped, and that was it. I don't know how close we are to that, but the parallels are there. And there are a lot of, as the phrase goes, there are a lot of thirsty guys out there that are looking for someone.
I've never heard of picky rats with social standards. That's a new one for me.
No, I'm just letting you know. But given how most men are typically invisible to women's eyes because there's no women's brains are really funny, and I don't want to go into that one right now, but needless to say, AI, whether it's going to be the sex dolls, the robots, or the AI, whatever the case may be, it will fill a niche for the men that are rejected. I mean, my son has basically said girls scare the shit out of him right now, and they're fucking nasty. That's just my honest opinion. In high school, they're just nasty. But this is only reinforced. My opinion is that with the women that have been saying, well, I don't need a man. Okay, great. I'm strong and independent. Okay, most guys don't want to put up with the bullshit of having to deal with an authority figure at work, and then they come home, and then she's going to basically be another authority figure, and then there will be expected to be, we're going to be clashes. You want to say something? Working? Okay. So,
well, I can say that I do think from what I've observed, because the mental health crisis is just with humans in general, a lot of guys' idea of an ideal woman only exists in Photoshop or in AI, and then, you know, as you said, the trauma that society is doing to women is making more and more of them increasingly more batshit, and it's just it's difficult for a decent guy, what few of them are left, to find a decent woman, whatever few also of them are left, because humanity as a whole is going on that rat experiment downward spiral. Now, I think when it hits a full collapse, obviously there will be enough for species continuity and it'll restart in a better way. But whether it's through jabs or wars or a myriad of other things that can depopulate, the biggest depopulator will be human activity itself, even absent the ruling class.
Yeah. Well, there are alternatives if you can afford it, which is to go overseas to maybe Eastern Europe or Southeast Asia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam being the popular places to go to. But I mean, this is also your comments about what males want for an ideal partner are unrealistic. Yes, they are. Women, female, first world women are are becoming just as deluded as the males seem to be. But
absolutely, as I agreed earlier, absolutely.
Yeah. It's been said that the women are the gatekeepers of sex, men are the gatekeepers of commitment. And if you're cutting off, if you're opening up your legs only under very, very, very specific conditions for very, very, very specific males, and then you hit the wall and realizing, kind of going, oh shit, I don't have time, I have to settle. And I can say that that's what's happened with one sister that I've got that I don't talk to. My brother has been rather blunt to basically say, yeah, she got married because she was getting old. And there's a myriad of...
One thing that should also be said about the phenomena of hitting the wall, and this has been within my experiences in research and so on and so forth, and we live in a toxic world, which makes this harder, but healthiness equals, youthfulness. You are going to be more youthful in your older age the more healthy you eat. So as we could see what's been going on, there's been more and more junk, fake food, carcinogenics, and all of that. So you have people hitting the wall sooner and sooner and sooner. I mean, on average, someone might hit the wall in their, 40s or 50s. If they're eating super healthy, and there's plenty of videos where you could see both men and women who have eaten super healthy that, they're in their 60s and 70s and they look like they're in their 30s, and you're like, wow, and sometimes even in their 20s, it almost seems like fucking magic. And that's like the ultimate of health. The average is okay, 40s and 50s. Your average person might start hitting the wall. But with all this people eat fucking garbage that barely passes as food, they're hitting the wall in their 30s, in their 20s, sometimes in their teens. They're getting hyper fucking wrecked. And then their emotional and mental states, because the biological, mental, and emotional don't each exist in their own vacuum. They're interconnected, so they all affect each other. Like, me personally, I'm 45, going to be 46. I tend to get clocked as looking in my, late 20s. I mean, minus the gray hair that I got on my beard and whatever. But generally, I have a very young look because I eat as healthy as I can and do as healthy as I can for myself. But it's just, I mean, you get what I'm saying, with this rant. People just, it's been trendy to trash yourself, and when you trash yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally, it's all tied in. You trash yourself emotionally, you get wrecked mentally and biologically. You trash yourself biologically, it affects you emotionally and mentally, and any other combination of those three you want to do. So we're in this society of self-destruction on every level. So men, ladies, you thought hitting the wall was a problem before. Keep eating the way you're eating and keep doing to yourself what you're doing, and you'll hit the wall before 25.
Well, simply put, my opinion is that AI is going to be the very easy way for your average and below, or shall we say, your sevens and below males will progressively gravitate towards the AI girlfriend, because at the end of the day, she's probably not going to say no, or she'll be there supporting you and just creating a vicious artificial intelligence or artificial emotional relationship. And so that's my opinion on all of that. And we've talked about this before, where this idea scares the shit out of feminists, because they're happy to put men in their place, shall we say. But if we have an outlet and we don't need them, all of a sudden whatever that they had for power, it's going to disappear. So they're shit in their pants more than more than any number of brown stains that I have in my underwear. What was the second one? Oh, YouTube. Fuck, whatever. YouTube. Well, actually, I just looked on my feed.
You're only on to the second one? Holy moly.
I'm not going to be that much. I won't be that fast. I won't be much longer anyway.
Yeah, I'm only pushing 1 o'clock. Sorry.
I know.
Continue.
Yep, I know. In terms of YouTube doing what they're doing, in my Telegram channel with X22, and this is what makes sense, is that YouTube is going to make itself more malleable for any false flag attacks. And given how closely tied I believe them to be with DARPA and whatever else, the deep state, doesn't fucking surprise me. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And then with Google, Pixar, and everybody else, if you actually hired people who are qualified to be doing their fucking job, and we're making products that were going to be consumed happily by their target audience, not the ideal fringe audience, but the actual repeat paying customers, i.e. Pixar and Disney, fucking whatever else, then you wouldn't have this problem. But they're hiring based on the requirements, the DEI, to get as many check marks as possible for the artificial implementation of representation.
The fact that it's an anagram of die, I don't think is a coincidence, because they're trying to kill everything.
No, pretty much, and that's my thinking as well. I mean, let's look at what happened when Musk took over X, what was now X, what was Twitter, whatever. How many people got let go? How many times did we hear of stories of people that just didn't fucking work. Well, you don't want to work today? That's fine. Don't worry about it. I mean, the money that was wasted on food and lunches and fucking whatever else would drive any normal company into bankruptcy. But they were floating. Where they were getting the cash from, I don't know. I don't care to know. So what happened with X and the staff cuts are going to reverberate through the tech sector, and that will have a ripple effect on everything else within the economy, and that's going to be across the planet. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. So we'll see. So the layoffs are coming in, and maybe this was a good thing that I avoided Seattle. I don't know, but I'll stay where I am for the time being. And I won't necessarily say that I'm going to like it, but I'm going to put up with it. So that, my friend, is that. As I said, I was going to be mercifully short here for you, so I have nothing more to say.
Okay, I am going to throw in a couple of little additional details here. First of all, as you have found out while you guys are busy talking, the name of the individual who arrested David Menzies is by the name of Constable Greg Dumochel. He's probably not a constable anymore. Very ironically, a look at his side profile, he bears a very striking resemblance to that other photo that I posted up right at the very start of the show. The one where you've got those protesters at
the trucker convoy.
Yeah, and the profile face looks very, very similar. That's the first thing. The other thing is when I actually started doing a search engine search on Gregory Dumochel, he is also, and I think you won't find this at all coincidental, he is also linked to that alleged attempt at the one that was really like it was exposed as a complete fraud. The alleged attempt of killing 4 police officers at the other border crossing, the one here in Alberta.
Oh, where they were seizing weapons and the like, and the farm equipment was confiscated or something to that effect.
Yeah, he is allegedly tied into that. So, yeah, I think we know what type of an individual we're dealing with here. Corrupt to the core, but willing to do what it takes. The fact of the matter is that the fact that he was tied into 2 events.
He's a happy stooge.
Yeah, he's a happy stooge, which kind of makes me think that this was that Freeland kind of organized. She knew. She knew. The other part that kind of got brought up, and this was involving the AI girl, because I didn't want to throw in comments on that. But both of you have commented, like, for instance, your son has told you that girls actually scare him. He's got good reason to be that way. I mean, at least once or twice a year with me. In fact, one of them happened when I was on my break here at the end of January. I went to a mall that is fairly close to a high school, and I was stuck in line behind basically, I think these girls were like 13, 14 or something like that. And this happens at least once or twice a year now. I made incidental eye contact with one of them, and I held it for like a second, and then I didn't think anything of it until I went to put sugar and cream into my coffee and stirred it, and they were all giving me this, you're a creep. So I made a conscious effort to not look at them, and I left, and I went to the food court, because it was closer to where my vehicle was parked, among other things. And I'm sitting there having my lunch, and these same 4 girls came walking by and threw fucking passive-aggressive, snarky fucking comments at me. But didn't say it straight to my face. They did it behind my back.
As I would expect for females to do, yeah.
Yep, so I couldn't actually prove that it was them or that it was being aimed at me. And here's the catch-22. If I had confronted them on it, they probably would have played the creep card.
Oh, yeah. So, you were damned either way. And this is why that AI girlfriends are going to take off because guys don't have to worry about any of that shit. You don't have to worry about getting ratioed or harassed, or there's going to be a talk at HR or social media.
Or the principal's gonna call you in or something like that. It's like, yeah, you know what? And it's like they're doing it to themselves, right?
They
You
are.
know what's probably going to take off even more?
Hmm?
The third option of none of the above. No AI girlfriend, no real girlfriend, no nothing, just simply none of the above. That's
Oh,
probably
you
going to
mean
be the option
straight
that
up?
takes
You
off the
mean
most.
like what I'm doing, which is just basically straight up MGTOW? Yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually, perhaps, if someone who's with Church Thinking Monkey, I mean, he's got his obsession with his sex dolls. Okay, fine, whatever works. But I mean, until he realizes that, well, this isn't really all that healthy of a habit that I've got, he's going to continue to go down that road, and it takes a lot of willpower to take yourself out and to go MGTOW. And not a lot of, and there may be enough guys that won't be able to do it, especially with the younger generation coming up now that really don't have any real life experience or don't have thick skin to be able
Well,
to see it.
here's the thing. I mean, they are figuring out one at a time anyway,
Mhm.
and the information, which is, by the way, why you're seeing women like Laura Bates and why you're starting to see conservative women freak out about the manosphere, is because this information is getting out there,
Yeah.
and guys are figuring it out,
Yeah.
and but I mean, it's like, it's like you can't even make incidental contact with women now, right? Like, I mean, I was another incident that I had at the gym I was working out at, right? I had to walk past this one woman to get to the weights that I wanted. And I just made incidental eye contact with her, right? And I grabbed my weights, went back to where I was going, which wasn't right next to her, but it was sort of like about 40, 50 feet down this exercise mat. And she literally calls some guy over, and like, this guy's giving me the fucking hairy eyeball as I'm working out. And I just ignore him. And then I go refill my water station. And when I come back, I just fucking start giving him the hairy eyeball right back. Because if he's going to fucking white knight, then fucking let's go, asshole. Right?
Mhm.
And he backed down. And I went on with the rest of my workout. But I mean, at that point, though, I was sort of like, well, it wasn't sort of like, I was like finishing my workout, sort of like halfway, expecting that one of the fucking employees in the fucking place was going to come up and confront me.
Yeah.
I don't know
You know?
why, but thankfully, I tend to not have these types of experiences out in public. Granted, I'll be the first to admit that, say for going grocery shopping or what have you, I tend to avoid publicly crowded spaces and keep to myself in general. But when I am out around, mixed groups of people, I personally don't run into these things. I tend to be left alone. Um, I'm not sure why. Other people, obviously, like you're saying, you have different experiences, but I tend to just be left alone and I leave everybody else alone, except for maybe, hi, thank you. I'm dealing with the person at the cash register, whatever, getting
Yeah.
my order at the deli, but, everything is cool and I tend to not have this.
Well, I mean,
Um,
I have had this discussion with multiple guys that have gone MGTOW, and it is a bizarre, fucking weird effect that happens to some guys in MGTOW. They go MGTOW, and they actually start getting more female attention than they did before.
yeah,
And we're
what
talking about guys that are not really, some of these guys are like not, like, they get attention from even when, like, for instance, at that same gym, right? I was getting attention from women in there, like real serious attention, and there were clearly guys working out around her that were better looking and better built than I was.
Well, like you said before, I think it's because those guys were interested and you weren't, and a lot of women have an attraction to that which they know they cannot have. It's a
Yeah.
challenge. It's a
Yeah.
challenge. Although one thing, when it comes to just like the idea of if a guy's going to have women in their life at all, like how do you avoid all the bullshit? One thing that's worked for me, and I know this is for most people, it's going to be easier said than done. I'm not going to act like it's some magic wand or unicorn or something, but I am just super goddamn picky about the people I deal with, period, whether or not they're men or women. And I am so hyper confident in the way I conduct myself that I will often be mistaken for extremely arrogant, know-it-all, or whatever, even if I'm just expressing like, hey, this is my opinion. You don't have to agree. So I guess it's a combination of I'm I'm not trying to be intimidating, but I am. So that kind of makes a lot of people instantly back off. And then that leaves only the ones that are brave enough to deal with me. And then on my end, I'll only deal with the ones that are decent human beings. So that's why I'm able to have both men and women that I deal with that are decent. Are they far and few? Yes. But I forgot if it was Paul McCartney or who said this, if you do things like that, you won't make a lot of friends, but you'll make the right ones, or it's something similarly worded. So, like, it's just, I've just, in my own personality that I've developed with more confidence and more of the here's my field of fucks, notice it as barren kind of thing. There's an intimidation factor that comes off me that a lot of people will just, like take one look at me and stay the hell away. So the ones that do approach, there's a higher probability of at least some of them being decent because just my presence has already made most of them run for the goddamn hills. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that it's a bragging point, it's just an observation I've made. I'm not trying to be intimidating. I've just noticed that tends to be the effect of my presence.
Okay. Yep.
Yep.
I
Anyway, we got to wrap this up because you need to get to sleep.
Yeah, I was about to say. The only other thing I'm going to announce is, and we may have to do a specific episode on this, although we maybe not. Warhammer 40K has been greenlit. It's going to go on Amazon. Henry Cavill is on the record as saying that he is going to do his damnedest to stay as close as he can. Basically, he's going to fight like a demon, like a summoned chaos demon, to make sure that the series stays as close to the lore as humanly possible. So
Cool.
yeah, no fucking female space marines. No getting sympathetic with the orcs because they're fucking misunderstood. Because everybody knows. I don't know if Dave Kelso knows much about Warhammer 40K, but yeah, the orcs are not misunderstood in 40K.
I know. I've heard of it. I know very little about it. Like, here's the gist of what I know. It's not going to be a long rant because I don't know much. It's basically this dystopian future kind of thing to where there's different factions and there really are no good guys or bad guys. Every faction's pretty much totalitarian, and it's just basically people trying to get by in a world that really kind of sucks. That's my understanding of Warhammer 40K.
That pretty much sums it up. There are bad guys who are the good guys, and then there's the really bad guys who are the bad guys. But here's the thing, even the bad guys, some of those bad guys actually have justification for why they're that way. Like I mean, there's thousands of hours of videos of lore on YouTube about Warhammer 40K.
Even Lex Luthor has justification, and he's still an asshole.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying that makes the people all right, but I mean, it's like, like a lot of the really evil, like chaos, like Primarchs, for instance, have plausible backstories to explain why they ended up doing the things that they did. But anyway, we're just dragging this out. I want to get to bed here. I do already have one story for next week, and I'll just post because I've already put it down here. And it is Oh, you're going to love this one. American Pediatrics Association declares that denying children transition surgery is child abuse.
I wonder who they're getting their funding from. Anyway,
that's it for tonight's.
You know what's child abuse? Not putting a bullet in those people's heads. That's what's child abuse.
Oh yeah, well,
Just
we'll
my
see.
opinion. I'm not advocating violence.
All right.
It's a mostly peaceful bullet. Okay, just to get off my case.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So that's one of the topics for next week. I suspect there's going to be a few more because, well, the year is just starting off absolutely insane, and we haven't even gotten started yet. That is it for tonight. Thank you all very much for listening, and I will hopefully thank if you got through all the way.